The story kicks off with a boy and a girl just chilling under a giant tree out in the countryside. The boy slams his book shut, then blasts out one huge decision. He's finally choosing to become the greatest adventurer anyone's ever seen. But she's not letting that slide. She clamps her clothes tight, snaps that it's not fair because she's the one who's supposed to be number one. For a split second, the boy's eyes widen in shock. Then he flashes her a giant, confident smile like he's got it all under control. So she doubles down and declares they'll both be number one, turning them into the greatest adventurer duo ever. And suddenly she's laughing, cheering, and dreaming of that huge future they'll build together. Jump ahead to that rankings board packed with names and scores, then look all the way at the bottom, where rank 96,743 is waiting. The boy slumps in place, drenched in sweat, staring at the board like the world just broke him. He collapses to the ground, rages that he hasn't gotten any better, and boom, turns out he's been dead last for 4 straight years. As he crouches there, drenched in shame, people nearby start whispering and snickering, gawking at how he's getting outplayed by brand new rookies. Around the guild, everyone keeps piling on, sneering at the kid and chanting, "Quit already, be a farmer." They even stuck him with the nickname Essen, the eternal bottom ranker, and right when he's down on his knees, crouched there. The guild's engine keeps churning. Every morning at sunrise, the adventure rankings auto-refresh, reshuffling everyone's spot using their latest wins and scores, and trust me, this is a huge deal because the guild's board flashes the names of every active adventurer on its roster so you can see, right there, exactly who's standing where. Even with the insults raining down, the boy snaps back into gear. He slaps himself into focus, screams that he's gotta get it together because quitting now isn't an option. His whole vibe flips in an instant. He tilts his head up and wears this calm, confident smile like he's finally locked onto what he came for. As he pushes through the roaring crowd, he clings to one thought: he's got a promise to keep for his friend. Then chaos erupts near the front of the board. Someone gasps in total disbelief as they watch a certain adventurer rocket straight up into 9th place. The crowd erupts over Ice Princess Polaris, and they're totally losing it as she rockets up the ranks faster than anyone ever has in the guild's history. One of the guys nearby starts flexing like he predicted it from the very start, bragging to his buddies that he always knew she was special because her aura was on a whole other level. The crew stares over and instantly feels creeped out, because that bottom-ranked kid is just standing there, grinning at them like he owns the place, and while it freaks them out, he's unfazed, telling himself it's finally time to get to work. The guild boys keep roasting him, cackling about how they caught that kid digging through the trash behind a restaurant the other day. They mock him as the total opposite of Polaris, then say even just staring at him makes them feel like they can smell garbage. And the main bully snaps to his friend that they need to get out of there before the boy's loser energy starts clinging to them. Then those words hit him. The boy keeps his mouth shut, plastering on a shaky smile as he stands there, waiting for the group to finally ditch him and leave him alone. The moment they're gone, he smacks his own cheeks like a wake-up call, insists he's dealt with this before, and tells himself there's no reason to keep spiraling. He stares over the city walls, pumps himself up like a battle chant, and swears he'll give it his all today, same as always. Eventually, he pushed through to the ruins at the edge of the territory, where the air felt thick, heavy, and eerily motionless. He slams to a stop at the entrance of the white mist forest, squares up at a low-level F-rank dungeon, and gears himself to dive headfirst into that foggy tree line. Deep in the woods, he spots a cluster of horned rabbits. Then the shadows rip open as a predator lunges out, and suddenly everything turns deadly. It snaps its jaws shut and drops one of the smaller creatures, right there in front of him. The boy crouches behind a tree, spinning his head back to the forest where the predator just struck. He exhales hard, staring at the aftermath like, whoa, that was way too close. Realizing it was a forest wolf pup, one of those little guys that usually sticks with a pack, he couldn't believe how easily it wiped out a fast rabbit. It all traces back to those ancient legends, the ones whispering about a brutal war between the gods and the demon god. The fight ended in a deadlocked draw until the demon god burned through its final sliver of power and slammed a curse into the earth, birthing monsters. To strike back, the gods drain their own power and forge crushing dungeons, trapping those monsters inside. He started hammering the land into giant fortress walls, sealing the surface so nothing below could ever break through. The gods couldn't stay forever, so they handed humans special powers, gifts, to help them guard their world, pushing people to build the Adventurers Guild and the ranking system they still use to this day. Now, adventurers spend every day hacking through monsters so the growing swarms don't burst out and trash everything in sight. The boy dives back into the fields, his hand plunging into the dirt to yank up another herb. He stares at the plant and figures he's the only one around actually trying to survive, living off nothing but gathering stuff like this. He digs into that herb on the spot, chewing it down while his mind races over his bizarre power, Monster Eater. It's a total useless gift, one that lets him scarf down anything he wants without getting sick, like he's some kind of monster, and it makes him wonder just how much longer he's stuck with this garbage. Stalking through the woods, he can't help but feel absolutely pathetic. Running for his life earlier from that week, Efrank monster cut him down so hard that the shame still stings. Staring at that dry, trashy meal in his hand, he tries to convince himself it at least saves him a little cash, but then, he stops mid-bite as it all goes south. A violent scream suddenly tears through the trees. He freezes mid-bite, eyes wide, completely thrown off. Right when someone screams for help, he darts to the side of a nearby tree and peeks around, trying to catch what's going on before it gets worse. Spotting a girl pinned to the ground, she's sobbing and trembling, while a colossal dark beast looms right over her. He can't believe his eyes. This isn't some tiny wolf at all. It's a full-grown adult forest wolf standing right in front of him. A wolf rumbles with a deep growl, bares razor-sharp teeth, and lets nasty drool drip from its mouth. She breaks completely and tumbles into a full-on panic, screaming at the top of her lungs, begging, "Is anyone out there who can hear me?" But the wolf explodes forward, slams her into the dirt, and pins her there, no escape. The boy screams for her attention, and through the tears, she finally jerks her gaze up and spots him. He doesn't even pause to think, he just barrels straight into the chaos. Realizing this, he realizes he's in the absolute worst spot. Because he's got zero combat skills to his name, then he whips his head around, begging for another adventurer, but the place is empty. But there's not a soul in sight. He clamps his fist shut, praying anyone would come and save him. The girl is shaking with pure terror, sobbing and begging for help while the monster looms over her. The boy steps forward anyway and hurls a crushing punch straight into the wolf's face, blasting it backward. Then he snaps at her to get up, right now, demanding if she's even capable of running. The wolf lunges and clamps its jaws shut with a vicious growl, and the boy freezes on the spot. While the girl glances at the door, she mouths a desperate apology. Her leg is wrecked and she can't move. She can't even breathe as the monster rockets toward her, and when it closes the gap, she lets out a scream like it's ripping out of her chest. Wondering if her life is actually slipping away, she screams for help, terrified at the idea of dying right here in some grimy low-level dungeon. The beast clamps down and tears into the boy's arm, but he refuses to panic, because the only thing screaming in his head is that promise and the fact that he hasn't hit his goal yet. He dares the monster to go all in, while his insides scream with panic, knowing he might drop dead way too fast. Staring straight into the wolf's snarling mouth, he roars again, clawing for the strength to finally make his move. The wolf bites down even harder. Blood erupts everywhere as the boy eats the impact. He stormed off, leaving the girl frozen in place as she could only watch and shriek, her terror spiking when he got ripped apart right in front of her. Right then, the wolf squeals in a weird burst, then blood explodes everywhere. A system message suddenly blares in front of him, announcing he's just snagged the forest wolf's great fang end. And this kid starts losing it, staring at the whole thing like, wait, was that a real divine message? He knows gifts usually spark that way, but he can't make sense of why it's hitting him now, of all times. The girl glances over with pure worry, then asks, voice trembling, if he's still holding up okay. For one stunned second, the boy's completely caught off guard, but he snaps back and tells her he's doing okay, for the most part. But everything spirals in a blink as the wolf rockets toward them again. Straight up, the boy grunts through the pain, barely able to move while the beast closes the distance. Then a brutal strike slams the wolf, blood bursts through the air, and it gets blasted backward. He shoved the boy there, blood streaking his face, and the kid just looked completely finished with the whole fight. He stares down at his shattered knife on the dirt, and the truth hits hard. No normal blade can survive fangs like those. So he starts realizing if he wants to survive this, he's going to need something way tougher or he's done. Then, click, everything snaps into place as he remembers that message about getting the wolf's fang, and he realizes he heard it the exact second he tore through the monster's tongue. The boy's stunned stiff, staring at his hands like they're lying to him, convinced this can't be real. But screw it, he decides to take the shot, plants his feet, and yells for his gift to activate just as the wolf lunges in, and then the boy gets hit with a massive surge of power, instantly understands what's happening, and launches himself at the beast. He drops a thunderous heavy strike, and the impact rips through the monster so hard it gets completely wrecked. He lands hard, then a wolf crumples and drops dead right behind him in the middle of the woods. Blood still streaked across his face, the boy can't believe he actually made it. He's telling himself he really pulled it off while the girl just stares at him in total awe, praising him for being so amazing. He snaps out of it, bolts over to her and asks if she's okay. His worry spikes when he spots her leg injury, but she just meets his eyes and tells him she's fine because he saved her. She flashes him this massive smile and with real heart, thanks him for everything he's ever done. Leaving him completely flustered, he rubs the back of his head, shocked that nobody ever thanked him once since he became an adventurer, and the girl stares at him like he's gone strange. The two of them plop down for a second, gulping air, and the girl tells him straight up that he's insanely strong. Then she introduces herself as Essen and asks why he keeps calling himself the bottom rank when he fights like that. The boy slumps in place, eyes heavy, and says he gets it. Maybe everything's different than he ever imagined. Yua shoots you an apologetic smile, admitting the mix-up happened because she only just started her life as an adventurer, then grins wide and introduces herself like, "Hey, I'm me." The boy just freezes on her, repeating the transformed word again and again like it's the first sound he's ever heard. So Yua leans in and tells him the truth. She wasn't an adventurer at all, just a farmer, and only recently did she step out because she had urgent, world-changing business to handle out here in these woods. Turns out this world is packed with different gods, like the travel god, who hands adventurers special gifts and even grants them the right to wipe out dungeons. So yeah, merchants rack up special perks from the wealth god, while farmers like her get support from the harvest god, and everyone's rewarded with their own perfect boost. Yua points out that if a guy as strong as him lands at the bottom, then this adventure life must be brutal beyond what she thought. So the boy can only manage a weak little laugh. He stared at his hands, then finally swallowed the truth. This was the first time his gift had ever worked at all. Yua's jaw hits the floor as she blurts, "Wait, are you seriously for real?" The boy just stood there, frozen, and it hit him. He'd been reading his own power completely wrong the whole time, like he'd never even seen the real truth until now. The boy sits there, locked in his head, realizing his power isn't some simple eat-a-ton trick like he thought. It's something way bigger. Turns out eating that wolf tongue finally kickstarted his power, right for the very first time. He starts doubting like, did he really just steal a monster's one-of-a-kind powers by swallowing them? And US shoots back that yeah, that's exactly what's going on. He's tried monster meat both cooked and raw and it still never works, so now he's convinced the real trick is eating it while it's still fresh. The moment it hits him that he can get way stronger finally lands and the hype explodes in his chest, like the future just turned into a playground. But then he snaps into a new mode and fires off. "So what were you really doing out here in these woods, Yua?" He suddenly realizes he's getting way too hyped, bursts into laughter, and wonders if he's jumping the gun. The boy shrugs and says the guy at the very bottom of the ranks probably can't do much, but Yua leans in and whispers, "No way, that's not true." He glances at her and shouts her name, caught wondering what's blazing in her head. And she goes dead serious, telling him she knows it's a crazy request after he just saved her, but she needs him to do one massive favor. Yua locks eyes with him and drops a massive request. She needs him to go slay the forest cat. The kid can barely process it. He just keeps blurting the monster's name back to her over and over like he can't accept it. She blurts that she's desperate for the rare mushroom growing on that thing's head, but she can't pay for a proper quest. She's flat broke. She admits she can't do it solo, and the boy snaps, "Hold up, because that thing is the deadliest monster in the entire forest." Yua falls into full desperation and begs him, swearing that this is the only shot to find a cure for her mother's sickness. But even after hearing that, the boy just freezes in place, staring at her. He finally blurts out that it's impossible. then her whole body freezes mid-breath and he blurts out an apology right away, guilt crushing him for even asking about her situation when he already knew he'd slam the door with a no. He blurts out that his earlier win was pure luck, his body just kicked into instinct and somehow everything worked out by chance. The boy shuts his eyes tight and admits it. Hitting a monster that huge out of nowhere is way more than he can take. For a split second, the two of them just stood there in the quiet clearing, then Yua clenched her fist hard and she leans in and tells him she understands, then slips him a heartbreaking smile as she apologizes for dragging him into something this insane. She spins around, says nothing, and disappears back into the dense trees by herself. So Essence steps in and presses the boy, "Are you really okay with letting me go?" forcing him to blurt her name. For a heartbeat, the woods fall totally silent as the girl vanishes deeper into the distance. Suddenly, Yua digs in, pounding the dirt with every step as she blasts through the brush and runs. She clutches a wooden stick like a weapon, heart pounding as she thinks, "If I don't move right now, my mom's already finished." Tears streak down her face as she screams, then swings her stick at the trees, trying to act brave even as her courage shakes. Just then, the boy bursts through the woods behind her, shouting for Yua to slow down because he snaps to the truth that he can't leave it this way. He blurts out, "I'm sorry," and admits he was totally wrong for saying no. The boy swears he'll take down the forest cat himself. No backup, no backing out, though he isn't even sure he can pull it off but the US starts breaking down, sobbing that her own selfish choices put Essen in danger. Essen snaps back that she's wrong and it just keeps going. He rages, yelling that his gift has been nothing but a lame excuse to hide, and he's done playing that game. He wants to stop it right now. He tightens his fist and snaps that if he doesn't pull this off, his idol will just end up laughing at him. Yua just freezes in place, staring at him like she's stunned by every word he spits out. The boy flashes her a small smile, then tells Yua to find a safe place to wait, so she finally gives in, drops her guard, and breaks into even louder tears, like her whole chest just unclenched. Her voice slices through the quiet trees as she tells him, "Thank you," and then she's left alone in the forest, fighting to wipe the tears off her face. She can't shake the guilt, convinced she's being selfish, even though Essen is probably terrified too. Essen scans the room with that battered, scratched-up face, silently begging for a way to help, like there has to be something she can do. She bursts into a sprint through the dense forest, desperate to claw her way back to the fight. She steals her resolve and tells herself she can't keep leaning on Yua anymore. She has to step up right now. From a massive cave entrance nearby, a deafening boom rips through the darkness and echoes everywhere. That forest cat just sits inside like it owns the place, ice calm, while this massive monster vibe hangs over it like a silent storm. But then the boy barges up to the entrance and shouts it out. He's been coming to this dungeon for 4 years and he knows every single hiding spot inside. He digs in and vows he'll never climb to the top unless he beats it first. Then he turns to the cat and demands it prove its worth. The boy lunges in with his knife, screaming that this first strike is the one that'll end it all. He rockets through the air at insane speed, hunting any opening to slam a perfect clean hit into the beast. But just like that, the cat disappears into thin air and the boy is left totally baffled, scrambling to figure out where it vanished to. The forest cat rockets forward with a vicious snarl, slamming its raw power straight into the boy's blade as the blast slams the whole group into the air, and the boy skids across the jagged cave floor, fighting to stay upright. He can't believe how brutally fast it's going. Every single move gouges deep ruts into the ground. So he clenches his teeth and forces himself to go even harder, because if he doesn't, he'll fall behind. A beast thunders down from above like a streak of lightning, and the boy snaps into action the second it appears. He whips his weapon up to collide head-on with the strike. The cat promptly hops back onto the ledge and drops this calm little meow like it couldn't care less. Frustration sparks in him as he realizes, what's the point of new power if he can't even land one clean hit on the target? And the moment the cat starts sprinting, it tears across the screen so fast you can barely even track it anymore. Then it finally clicks. This whole time the monster hasn't been hunting them at all. It's been toying with them. Before he even gets a chance to react, the beast crashes in with a brutal strike, sending him stumbling back, reeling. The boy can't even breathe. He stares in disbelief at the power slamming into him, screaming that there's no way this monster is only an F-rank threat. The forest cat streaks through the trees like a blur, and then unleashes a crushing strike that hurls the boy flying backward. He crashes hard into the rough cave wall, heart racing, wondering if he'd survived better if he'd prepped just a little more. But when he face plants into the dirt, he shakes his head, fighting to think straight and claw his way out of this disaster. Sweat pours down his face, fresh scratches burn his skin, and the truth hits hard: he's powerless until he can somehow match that creature's insane speed. Right when hope is slipping away, someone yells his name, and he snaps his head up to see a familiar face standing right there. It's Yua, and the boy's totally blindsided when she crashes onto the scene right in the middle of the danger. So he turns to her and demands, "What are you doing here?" while that cat monster just sits there staring at the two of them. Yura blurts out that she truly wanted to help him, then proudly shows off the trap she cooked up, using a local rabbit as bait. But right mid-sentence, she slips, her balance snaps, and she crashes down, so the poor rabbit just sits there, completely baffled like the rest of them. The boy snatches the forest rabbit and clamps down hard, totally stunned as. When he finally clocks it, he realizes this tiny terror is the monster everyone talks about, powered by insane leg strength. When that forest cat rockets toward him, the boy can't help but joke to himself, please let it be the cat's weird instincts, not his ears getting bigger from this insane connection. Then he launches forward, so fast the ground seems like it blows up in his wake. Right then, a system message snaps onto his screen. He's officially claimed the forest rabbit's fleetfoot skill. He rockets through the air, slices through the dust cloud, and blurts out a quick thanks to Lua for the save. Once his fresh speed hits, he stares straight ahead and tells himself, "Yeah, I can do this." He rockets across the battlefield like a blur, streaking around the monster, until the whole area ignites with light trails. He spots a crack in its defense and swings with everything he's got. His strike thunders through, blood bursts into the air, and he finally nails a brutal, solid hit. Blood splattered all over him, but the boy only flashes a grin and charges ahead, determined to finish the fight. Essence froze, eyes wide in stunned shock, struggling to make sense of what she had just witnessed. The boy wipes the blood off his face, throws out a quick thanks, and acts like getting wrecked was just part of dinner. Essen couldn't hold herself back. She lunged on him and gushed that he was amazing, while the boy screamed her name in pure shock, still reeling that he'd actually taken down a forest cat. He tells her to wait a second, and then panic hits as sweat bursts out of him because he suddenly realizes just how close she's gotten. She instantly flips out, blurting apologies and stammering that she got way too hyped and didn't mean to grab him like that. She flips the topic with a wink and teases him, asking what kind of gift he finally got from that cat. The boy repeats her words back, face locked in a serious stare as he wrestles with the brand new power surging through him. He swears he heard a voice call out, "Sharp claw." The second energy starts swirling on his fingers. Suddenly, he slips up and lets the power slip free, and it rips across the ground and cave walls, carving massive slashes everywhere. Essen just grins while everything falls apart, admitting that the monster devourer power of his is crazy hard to rein in. The boy fidgets with his shiny new claws, blushes as he tells the girls they're about to witness his first try, so don't expect miracles just yet. He wastes no time swinging that power in one clean swipe. He slices straight through a thick mushroom stalk right in the middle of the wood. He shoves the cap into your hands, grinning as he tells you these are the mushrooms he promised her mother's cure, no less. Yua lowers her gaze, swearing she'll pay this favor back someday, but the boy waves it off. He's just relieved she showed up to help. Still, his tone turns sharper and he begs her to keep his gift under wraps, because most folks only see monsters as the enemy. He jokes that if word ever leaks about his weird power, he might actually end up getting bullied, and Essen just laughs, saying that would be an absolute disaster. Yua beams at him, tells him she gets it, but she'll never, ever forget how kind he was to her. The boy grins and shoos her away, telling her to hurry up and bring those mushrooms back to her mom. She beams for real as she thanks him one last time, grips her bag tight, and bolts off toward home. Alone in the spotlight, the boy finally gets it. No matter that he's still dead last, he's at the true starting line of his journey at last. This kid is on fire, roaring at every adventurer he hasn't even met yet to just wait up for him. And just like that, he calls out Polaris too, yelling that he's coming for her while she's stuck out in this wild, volcanic wasteland. He's dead set on becoming the one adventurer, even while he's stuck way back at rank 96,000. Then a total powerhouse storms onto the scene, stomping onto the cracked ground in heavy armor and everyone nearby snaps their heads toward the door, starts whispering like, "Yo, look who just showed up," and drags their friends over to see. The guys watching her go completely silent because the Ice Princess Polaris is right there, striding past them like it's nothing. They can't believe she's back already. Volcano territory is so brutal even ranked teams won't step near it. Polaris stands alone before a huge, fancy decorated frame, just staring at whatever's right in front of her. A massive crowd erupts in panic when one guy's name vanishes from the rankings overnight, and suddenly everyone's scrambling. Where the heck did he go? Polaris just lets out a tired sigh because climbing the ranks is brutal. Once you hit the top, moving up is even harder. The crowd won't stop buzzing over the missing name, and this big, muscular adventurer beside Polaris just shrugs it off like, that guy was probably some low-rank nobody. Then he leans in and tells her, people fall off the list like this all the time, but this creepy-looking blonde guy steps in, grins, and drops the truth. There are only two ways a name gets erased from the rankings. Listen, because he's about to explain. Either you walk away from the life and quit adventuring for good, or you end up dead. Polaris doesn't even flinch at his dark talk. She just locks eyes with him and fires back a cold, dry line about how he's doing. And he just shrugs it off, telling her that whatever happened to that missing person is none of their business. He slams into a new pace, turns on the charm, and starts flirting, telling her she still looks drop-dead gorgeous. Then he pushes for it. Stop stressing over those low-rank losers and come sip tea with him instead. Polaris cut him off on the spot and made it crystal clear she didn't need him at all. He's completely blindsided and blurts out bragging that he's ranked 73, trying to sell her on joining his party like it'll supercharge her. Meanwhile, Polaris doesn't even slow her pace, shutting him down with a "No, you don't need that." He walked away feeling humiliated, scrambling to convince himself she's just playing hard to get. Polaris glances over her shoulder one last time, then drops the brutal truth. She won't team up because he's way too weak compared to her. He drops his gaze as they label him a full-on battle maniac, totally obsessed with gifts. Polaris suddenly senses something off, whips her head around, and the shock on her face is instant when she sees what's there. A girl stands dead center in a giant wall of blazing ancient runes, like she's staring down a forbidden spell. The boy clenches his sword so hard his knuckles go white, shouting that Essence is dead wrong about what she's thinking. Then he declares he knows himself better than anyone and that he'll never just fold, not even for a second. But Essen just stands there wide-eyed and stunned, like she can't even process what she's seeing. Tears sprang to her eyes as the new rank flashed on screen. Essen had officially slammed into rank 90,000. Polaris starts to walk away, her cape snapping in the wind, but she doesn't blink. She keeps her eyes locked on everything chasing her from behind. Back at the hall, the boy is screaming in cheers, more pumped than he's ever been. And the other adventurers nearby just gawk at him. One guy's like, "What's his problem?" While that bald dude blurts, "Did you finally lose your mind?" Even when the girl snaps, "Stop shouting," and labels him a perpetual loser, he only grins wider because his ranking just climbed at last. The ponytail guy just freezes in stunned silence, like his brain can't process it, because he refuses to believe the boy is really dead serious. The crowd flips on him, shouting what shady tricks he pulled to climb the ranks, because even after all that, rank 90,000 is still way too low. And they keep pushing, saying anybody can snag that hide just by picking off a few weak monsters. Then they snap at him to quit acting so smug. One of them even pushes harder, claiming the only reason he climbed at all is that he only passed people who have already gone inactive for good. A woman walking past snaps at him, saying if he's this fired up over some little ranked jump, he'll never survive the real world. And the ponytail guy snaps that after being a loser for so long, his reputation won't flip overnight, no matter what anyone tries. He just scratches his head, bursts into a laugh, and basically admits the other guy's dead on about where he stands. He fires back with biting sarcasm, thanking them for the insults and vows to train even harder, without letting that little win inflate his ego. Then his mind snaps back to that gift, and suddenly he realizes he has to hit up different dungeons, even though he's only ever stepped into one. He realizes he can't figure out his next move alone, so he barrels straight to the guild counter to corner the staff and get answers. The receptionist flashes this massive smile, tells him her name is Lulu, and asks how she can help him today, and it almost cuts him off like a. Right away, Essen can't stop thinking, how cute, while he explains he's hunting for an E-rank dungeon recommendation. As she listens, he can't stop clocking how smooth and sharp the guild staff is, way more polished than the rough adventurers he usually runs into. Lulu shoots him a polite nod and tells him, I've got it, then asks him to wait just a second while she checks it. Essen can't stop geeking out in his own head, replaying how she's kind to a lowly nobody like him, and swearing she's the prettiest girl he's ever seen. He's frozen there, dazed out of his mind, replaying how amazing she smelled every second she talked to him. Lulu suddenly snaps her eyes up from her papers and asks, so you're Essen? And it completely blindsides him because he didn't. He totally didn't expect her to know his name, so he just froze on the spot, staring in pure confusion. Then he confirms, yep, that's him. She suddenly gets shy and panics like, wait, I think I jumped the gun, because she realizes he's not some nobody, he's actually pretty famous in the lower tier guild scene. Essen realizes the bottom of the barrel reputation he's carried for years has finally caught up to him, so he just shrugs, laughs it off, and says, yeah, I get it. Lulu flashed him a warm smile, said she couldn't believe the rankings were out this morning, and admitted she was just so thrilled, like all his grind finally paid off. Essen flashes her a huge grin, thinking she's absolutely amazing. Then Lulu snaps to a stop and slams him with a serious look, and she leans in close and warns him, the second you think everything is finally going your way, that's when people drop their guard, so he'd better stay on his toes. He shoots her a thumbs up, grins, and swears he's got this, same bright, happy face like he's already won because. And just like that, it's go time. She slaps all the quest papers down on the counter and gets straight to business. She starts ripping through the options, hunting for the one thing that clicks with him perfectly, and then she points straight to the graveyard of repose and says the undead there move slow, so they're perfect for beginners who want an easy first win. Then she brings up the Ochre Underpass, a hot spot where people rake in cash because the relics are still piled up from what came before. She also mentions the Wandering Caves for their rare materials, but she cautions him that it could be a little too much if he goes in alone. So Essen scans the list and instantly tosses the undead aside, no way he's eating that stuff, then decides he'll stay clear of crowds and anywhere he can't handle things solo. Essen pauses for a beat, then blurts out that he'd love to go somewhere that isn't packed and isn't the next big must-see spot. So Lulu digs through her pile of papers, yanks one free and fires off, what do you think of this option? She drags him into the Murasame wetlands and points out every secret detail of the place as it. He lays it out like, no big competition here, these monsters are pretty run-of-the-mill, but the materials rake in serious cash since they're crazy hard to find. Essen locks in with a fierce, determined stare and declares, I've already made my choice. He tells her he's genuinely grateful he asked for her advice, and she waves him back like, anytime, come again, even sweetening the deal by offering extra info to help him out. He barrels for the door, swings back mid-stride, and blurts out a quick thanks to her as she flashes him a huge grin, winks like a secret signal, and sends him off with a good luck for every battle still coming. He finally completes the journey and plants his feet on the rough, rocky ground right at the entrance. Essen steps up and stares across the wild landscape, and it hits him. He finally made it to the Irank Murasame wetlands. The boy pauses for a breath, then his eyes sweep the scene, and it hits him exactly what he's up against. Bubbles suddenly burst up from the murky water right before he drops in, and the moment he hits the surface he's yelling like crazy while splashing everywhere. He plops down on the riverbank, scrubs the muck off his feet, and mutters that it's painfully obvious why no one wants to set foot here. Then out in the far distance, something flashes into his sight out of nowhere. He spots a cluster of strange new plants and suddenly realizes the whole area is packed with rare, valuable materials. So he yanks out that magic bag he snagged from the forest cat trade, grinning, because the extra space inside means he can stuff it with as much as he wants. He kicks into high gear, convinced he can rake in a massive haul at this pace until some slimy thing coils around him and he yelps in pure shock. A wetland frog stares him down, and the moment he locks eyes with it, he can't stop thinking, "Ugh, that thing looks disgusting." He knew even the dungeon's weakest monsters came packed with poison. The boy charges straight through the monster, roasting it as a total trash mob As soon as he spots another frog scrambling to get away, he bolts after it, barking at it to wait up. He halts the moment he lands it, looming over the wreckage of his kill. He grimly clenched his gag reflex, then decided the only thing that mattered was pushing his nasty power even further. He just dives in and devours the raw meat, convinced everything's going perfectly, until you can practically hear the trouble brewing. Until a system message blasts on screen, claiming he got the frog's whipping tongue. He shoves the last bite down, wipes his mouth clean, and grins like he just conquered the world. Then wham, a sharp pain rips through his neck, stealing his breath and yanking him by surprise, and he clamps a hand around his throat as a sinister dark dread crashes in. He erupts into screams because his throat feels like it's burning alive, and the wild part is, it's actually burning that badly. The boy crumples to the ground, clutching his chest as panic screams through him, because he can't even breathe and he knows it's real trouble. So he snatches a bottle in seconds and gulps the whole thing down to slam the reaction to a stop. He gulped in air and realized he'd totally dropped his guard, because that monster eater gift can't stop the poison, so he was only saved because he'd actually brought an antidote. Staring at his trembling hand, he realizes those gifts aren't the all-powerful thing he thought they were. He drops into the dirt and broods, realizing Alulu's warning was dead on right. He flashes a tight little smile, smugly telling himself he's got serious firepower, especially for some lowly E-ranker. Then he glances back at the dead monster nearby, scanning every inch of the area to be sure he's safe. He yanks out his guide, scans for the next target, and pushes his thoughts hard. He's gotta hunt down the strongest ability he can find. But he knows if it fights back too hard, he won't be able to take it down, and with every antidote gone, his next meal has to be safe, no exceptions. Right then, he spots a flicker of movement near the ruins in the distance and his mind races. What the heck is out there? The boy rockets ahead, already thinking this target isn't poisonous and maybe he can score some real, solid scale skills from it. He spots a whale in one direction, a lizard waiting up ahead, and decides this time he's the one who's landing the first hit. As he surges closer, he hits the perfect moment and finally tests that brand new power he just unlocked. So he triggers the whale and the frogs whip their tongues, launching a long, fleshy lash straight into the monster. It snaps into place like it was made for the moment, cinching around the lizard's neck and pinning its arms to the ground. With a brutal yanked pull, he hurls the creature down and smashes it into the dirt so hard the ground itself cracks. But then he spots the lizard tucking itself in and it hits him. This thing's skin is way tougher than he ever expected. Right before he can strike back, the monster slams him with a brutal counter and he tumbles hard across the rocks, leaving him with nothing but a lizard loomed over him, blasting a deafening growl as he tried to yank himself back together. He refuses to back off. He's convinced he can still claw his way to victory as long as he sinks his fangs and bites straight through that armor. A notification flashes on screen. He just snagged the whale and lizard blade tail. The boy stands there totally transformed. Monster claws out, a massive tail twitching ready to strike at any second. Right in front of him, the lizards start hissing like crazy, trying to look tough as they circle him. But the kid just smiles and says their stories are worth a fortune, so yeah, he's taking them out for sure. He zeroes in on the lizard's thick back scales, then snaps forward and rockets off at full speed. He slashes straight through the monster in a single, brutal motion. Then it explodes into flying pieces everywhere. With blood flying everywhere, the boy flashes this feral grin and blurts that he's actually having fun. Every time he takes a bite, his body and skills level up like clockwork. He doesn't stop, he whips his fresh blade tail around and slams into a huge spinning strike that's on another level. It smashes into the final lizard, and the poor thing screams out one last weak cry before it's gone. The boy lunges ahead and swings that massive lizard tail like a wrecking ball, smashing the air with pure force. He commits to the strike, and in the next instant he tears the monster apart, sending scales exploding through the air in every direction. Bathed in monster blood, the boy bursts into the open and screams that he's pumped about the win. Once the adrenaline finally fades, he realizes it's time to call it a day. He scans his haul and blurts out that he somehow ended up with way more materials than he ever expected. By the time he finally reaches the towering city walls, night has already swallowed the sky. He slips through the chaos of the busy streets, vanishing right into the crowd of adventurers and locals like he belongs there. He dashed past the city fountain, chasing his way to cash in his loot at the trade. He hums to himself after cashing everything out, already picturing a juicy steak dinner now that he finally has the money. Then he decides it's the smartest move to stock up on every supply he'll need later. Essence freezes for a beat, then it hits him. Before he even moves, he has to find some pants. He stared at the damage, stunned that his brand new tail skill actually tore his clothes to shreds. And because he was so locked in on the fight, he never even saw the rip, and now he's limping around with a huge gash punched into the back of his gear, and he feels completely ridiculous. He barrels through the crowded city streets, repeating to himself that he can't afford a second delay because he has to reach a clothing store right now. As he bolts to escape, panic hits hard. What if he runs into someone he actually knows? Right as his nerves start spiraling, a sharp pair of heels starts clicking on the floor, and a voice snaps his name like it's calling for him. Essence freezes in his tracks, eyes wide with pure shock, praying he just misheard it yet. But he recognizes that voice like a punch to the chest, right as Polaris steps out and calls his name again. So why is she even here? He whips his head over his shoulder, drenched in sweat, while Polaris just keeps glaring at him and murmurs out, "Congratulations." She flashes him a tiny smile and tells him she saw the news. His adventure rank finally shot up. Essen looks absolutely wrecked, sweat pouring as reality hits him and he realizes just how disastrous his situation is right now. Polaris confesses she doesn't have the full picture of what's really been happening to him, but she tells him it's undeniable now. Everything he's been grinding for is finally hitting pay dirt. With Polaris sitting that high on the ranks, she has zero reason to be stuck down in the lower districts. Essen admits he was sure she'd forgotten him by now, then blurts out, "Do you really still care?" She just stares him down and whispers his name, while he keeps standing there with his back still turned. He drops his gaze to the dirt and feels utterly humiliated for ending up right here. Polaris flashes a hopeful grin and asks, "So, can I finally see you fight again?" She tries to pitch the idea of teaming up as a party, but Essen slams her down immediately and tells her he can't. He plants his feet, shuts her down hard, and tells her it's not happening, leaving Polaris frozen in total shock. Essen clenches his fist and admits it. If he ever teamed up with Polaris for real, his rank would rocket upward in no time. But he opens his hand and tells her, straight to her face, that this is not the kind of adventurer he's meant to be. He admits it's probably just his own stubborn pride, but he's still dead set on clawing his way to the top solo. Polaris stares him down and snaps that he's still the same selfish jerk, realizing he hasn't changed one bit. She stands right in the middle of the street, shuts her eyes for one beat and starts soaking it all in, like the whole world just paused as she does. As everyone brushes by, she finally leans in and tells him, "I get it. I understand exactly where you're coming from." Her face softens as she looks at him and she promises, "I'll be right here waiting when you arrive." And she flashes him a huge, blazing smile as she swears, straight up, that she'll be there waiting. Essen starts walking off, flicks a casual wave over his shoulder and doesn't even spare a second glance back, just keeps going, which he slips away, vanishing back into the crush of the crowd and keeps pushing forward, doing things his own way. The boy clenches his fist and roars that he's finally charged up, then decides it's time to get everything ready for tomorrow. He rams right into a guy on the street, and while the other dude just blurts, "Oops," the boy shoots back, "I'm sorry." The boy barrels off in a panic, and the guy he just smashed into simply stands there, wearing a creepy smirk like he expected it. The armored guy just blurts out that he's seeing everything. Then he stares as the boy walks away, clutching his own arm, and a shady vibe hangs in the air. As the sun sinks lower, the whole scene flips, and someone yells at the top of their lungs to grab the shopkeeper's attention. Turns out it's the boy at the clothing stall, smiling politely as he asks the worker for a brand new pair of pants. Later, the story jumps to the Spirit Peaks of Thunder, a brutal, high-level A-rank dungeon where lightning never stops crashing into the rocks. As the brawl rages on, a colossal monster crashes into the chaos with a thunderous roar. Then, out of nowhere, a warrior lets out a battle cry and charges straight at it. Polaris hurls herself forward at full speed, pouring every ounce of strength into a desperate dash as she braces to take that beast down. She locks eyes with pure focus, then slams her ice floor magic, turning the entire ground into a deadly weapon. The massive beast gets blasted by a beam of pure cold, screams in total confusion and staggers back like the impact just blew its world off course. Polaris won't let it catch a breather. She fires off her icicle lance spell and hurls it straight at the target. An ice spike tears straight through the monster's chest, and Polaris flashes a satisfied smirk as she watches it drop. But no, it's not over. She clocks the lightning worm barreling toward her and springs into the air instantly, grabbing the first strike. She lunges to strike, but the worm never gets close. She's lightning quick, and with one ruthless blast of ice energy, she carves straight through the creature before it can even land a hit. She gasps for a beat, and then realizes she's already wiped out more than 20 of these monsters while the storm keeps roaring outside. It's fight after fight after fight. Yeah, she knows that's exactly how these dungeons behave during the inundation period. She locks in her focus, unleashes the frozen star's power, and fires her permafrost magic to crush the threat for good. Later, the locals track her down to thank her for calming the monsters like she always does, but she waves it off and insists it's no big deal. As she slips out of the area, she can't help thinking, please let things stay calm and peaceful for a while. Polaris just smirks and shrugs, basically admitting she couldn't care less about the whole biology of monsters. Her whole plan is simple. When they pop in, she just hunts them down one by one. She tears herself away from the quiet, snow-choked village and strikes out on her own road. Meanwhile, the boy is locked on Essen, panicking because he can't just stand there doing nothing, especially after he promised he'd wait. He rushes to a carriage, demands a ride to Liebel, and the driver instantly realizes he's got an adventurer on his hands. A full week has blown by since he first collided with Polaris. The driver snaps at him to hurry up and climb in, and the boy's mind races, because his wetlands training finally paid off, pushing him toward the road ahead. He jumps inside, then freezes, because he's not the only one who rode in on this trip. Some dudes already posted in the back, locking eyes with him, those sharp, cat-like stares drilling straight through him. The stranger smirks at him like it's a joke, taunting him for being the poor sap stuck dead last in the rankings. The boy just sits there, mind racing, because this stranger's being insanely rude to his face, like they've known each other forever. But the guy just keeps grinning like he runs the whole place, while the boy can only stare in stunned disbelief. The stranger leans in and asks me something, then before he can even finish, he introduces himself as Keith, only for the boy to snap back, "I didn't ask for your name." The boy makes it crystal clear he's climbed out of the bottom of the rankings, but Keith just scoffs like it changes nothing. Staring at him, the boy can't help but wonder, does this guy's rank really match all the swagger, or is he just talking big? Especially because his gear looks like it's been through years of brutal fights, like it's seen real action and came back swinging. He has to admit it, the guy's got this undeniable vibe, and just like that, even Keith can't hold back. He starts hyping E-rank adventurers as actually tough and grills the boy like, "Are you even on that level?" He snaps at the boy, telling him not to drag him into some endless pit of bitterness, then slams the idea home. Weaklings should just pack it up and go home. But then the boy's eyes harden, and he snaps at Keith to stop calling him that name. Essen storms right up in the guy's face, barks his name, Essen, and demands he stop using that other nickname. Keith snaps his eyes shut and flashes a smug smirk, like it's tragic that Essen won't even accept his kindness. But he shrugs it off, still calls him Pessin, and dares him to prove he's truly worthy to climb all the way to the top. Essen's not buying it. He's going anyway, told or not, and he's not about to hand Keith a single scrap of proof. The story snaps to a stone wall staring out at the horizon. After that brutal, endless journey, the ride finally reaches its finish. The driver leans out and calls out that they've finally hit their destination. Essen bursts out of the way and throws his arms up to the sky, yelling that a trip like that drains you to the bone. Keith snaps at him for acting like a total brat, but Essen just shrugs. He says he can't help it because he's never really traveled anywhere before. Then, right when he thinks he's about to breathe, something snaps his attention and he erupts with a shock-filled shout. Staring out over the wall, Essen is totally stunned, because out of nowhere the sea opens up and a whole port town sprawls in front of him. Keith shouted at Essen again, and yeah, he did it with that same annoying nickname. Essence snaps back, tells him I'm Essence, then presses him hard. What do you really want? Keith smirks and fires off a warning, don't play so casual with his name or he'll blow him away, then leans in and asks if he's really headed for the. Essen tells him I'm just scouting the area for now, then flips the question right back on him. Keith just shrugs it off with a grin, saying he's got way more breathing space than Essen, so he's not even touching it until tomorrow. Essen trudges off, replaying the whole mess in his head. He can't believe he just ran into a complete weirdo. The path drops straight to the shoreline, where crashing waves hammer the rocks like they're trying to break through. He finally slams through the entrance of the E-rank dungeon, this huge place they call the Murmuring Reef. Essence just stands there soaking in everything, and then it hits him. He really made it to the reef, right where the waves roar like monsters. He remembers Alulu spilling the secret about a place nobody else dares to enter, and right then he starts heading straight for it. Essence feeling pretty damn good about this spot, picturing how he can snag every skill he wants here as he straps down his gear, he decides, might as well hunt monsters for pay too, and starts chasing extra cash on the side. Turns out these untouched dungeons, ones nobody dares to enter, still somehow end up getting flooded with requests to clear them because if these monsters keep spawning and the area gets jam-packed, the barrier will snap, and then they'll burst through and start tearing into people. So Lulu nudged him toward this job, telling him the place might be quiet, but the pay is secretly solid. Today's mission is dead simple. He's got to hunt down and wipe out 3 leaf crabs and then go. And just like that, he spots a monster lurking in the water nearby, hanging out like it owns the place. Staring at it, he's instantly back in childhood, hearing those wild stories about a monster stampede that nearly tore a whole village apart. And honestly, forget the money, forget the rank. He just wants to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. He finally gets it. He has to step up and grab jobs like this now and then because if he doesn't, everything stops being safe. That leaf crab is just chilling in the water. Then, out of nowhere, it suddenly senses him. The boy swings for a brutal blow, but his weapon barely bites, and he can't wrap his head around how rock-solid that shell is. He's forced to back off, wipe the slate clean, and reset his stance in the water. Because the monster lunges with a gigantic claw swing, so fast it nearly rips his head clean off. He's absolutely stunned by the sheer force of it, and he blurts out that an E-rank monster has no right to hit this hard. That crab won't back off 1 inch, its massive claws keep snapping shut, trying to pin him flat and keep him there. The boy smirks and fires back, asking if the monster's really ordering him around, because he's been getting underestimated for years. He slams right back into the fray, screaming that being looked down on his whole life is something he's done with. He remembers those monsters have a soft spot on their bellies and they can't rock back and forth fast at all, so he slips in through that opening, rushes around the side, and slams a massive hit that flips the crab clean over. The boy blurts out that once the monster gets flipped onto its back, it's basically powerless. And he starts hacking into that monster's massive leg, praying it's actually edible. He grinds against the shell, snapping complaints all the way because even the base of the leg feels brutally tough, but somehow he pushes through. The meat's blazing hot inside, and the second he takes a bite, it floors him completely. This is so good he can't stop grinning. He gets completely lost in every mouthful, like the meal's taking over his whole world. He's lost in how perfectly the texture lands, and how the sea's sweet and salty flavors blend like they were meant for each other. He started the day daydreaming about becoming a master chef, and seizing control of the entire food industry. He even daydreams that Polaris would help him run a restaurant, where he'd serve up a rank dragon roast to everyone who walks in. But he snaps out of it in a blink, then he roars at himself for being such a complete idiot. He snaps back to his real goal, shouting that his dream has nothing to do with climbing some restaurant ranking. The boy trudges along the rocky shore, nerves rattling so hard that he's sure he'll never, ever catch up to Polaris. So he dashes into town, hunting for a decent place to crash for the night. As he strides past the shops, he hammers one thought into his head: find the cheapest spot he can, and that's when he slams the brakes in front of a place called the Coral Pavilion. That soup smell leaking from inside is so crazy good he can't even think straight, so he slams the door open, strides inside, and blurts a quick, "Hey," like it can't wait. The guy at the counter greets him and asks if he's an adventurer hunting a room, and the boy says he'll be there for about 5 days. And the guy tells him stay as long as you want, right as a voice from the side blurts out, "You're amazing." In the shadows, a mysterious guy just smirks and brags. He's the strongest adventurer alive. He claimed he only came to this dungeon for one specific reason, but the truth, it's just a quick detour before he moves on. Keith slaps his face scars with a pointing finger and brags to a kid that they're the receipts of his power as Keith of the Scorching Sun. And the kid instantly panics, like, whoa, that nickname is too cool. Keith spots the boy and yells that he's finally shown up, his so-called lackey, only for the kid to look totally drained and boiling mad. But the kid is absolutely blown away by the thought of having a lackey. The boy drops his gaze to the table and asks Keith what he thinks he's doing, and Keith just shrugs like it's the most obvious thing in the world. He's only having dinner. The boy blurts out that he's not even being mean. He's asking why Keith is stuffing a kid's head full of lies. But Keith just huffs and claims that because the kid sits below his own miserable 70,000th ranking, that means they're basically equals anyway. The kid fires off, "What's your rank?" And the lackey just stammers out like, 76,000, then immediately has to swallow his pride and admit he doesn't even have a cool nickname. Keith locks eyes with him and asks if he finally quit chasing that eternal last place title, and the boy feels his grip on everything start slipping. So Keith demands he climb past him in the rankings before he even dares to talk back, and the kid just breaks. Tears start pouring out from pure, crushing frustration. The boy grips his shirt and snarls through his teeth, and that sting hits hard, because yeah, he's been grinding like crazy to get stronger lately. Keith flashes a smirk and tells the boy that his new rank wasn't skill at all, it was pure luck, and then he laughs. "I only know the version of me who covers up failure by acting like a total idiot." Keith launches into a furious rant about how much he despises the boy's real nature. He patted his shoulder, then told him that for a guy with 0 accomplishments, that's honestly a pretty fair way to see the world. Keith snaps around, turns his back and strides out of the restaurant, while the boy stays rooted there, utterly wiped out, staring after him. While Nick, the kid, freezes with a worried stare as he watches the whole thing unfold. That night, the boy sprawled flat on his back in bed, eyes locked on the ceiling like he couldn't blink away his thoughts. Teeth clenched, he snapped at himself under his breath because he couldn't think of a single comeback to Keith's insults. Suddenly, crack, a knock slams the door and the boy jerks upright like, "Come in." The door bursts open and the kid from the restaurant is right there, staring at him like, "So who are you, exactly?" He tells the kid, "I'm Nick," says his dad runs the whole place, then leans in and demands, "So what's your name?" The boy perches on the edge of the bed, then finally blurts out to the kid, "My name is Essen." Before Nick can ask if his dad wants to hear about breakfast for tomorrow, he catches him holding a mop and cheers him on. "Good job, helping out." Nick shrugs and says, "I guess I am," then fires back that he's stacking every coin he's got for a sword because he's going to storm the dungeon and conquer it. Essen flashes the kid a warm grin and tells him, "That goal sounds insanely awesome, but deep down he can't stop wondering, back then was he just like that too?" Nick whips the mop around like it's a battle weapon, screaming that he's about to pass Essen's friends and leave every other adventurer in the dust. Essen just throws back a laugh like, "Yeah, I get it," and you can tell he can't possibly afford to lose to some kid. Nick keeps screaming that he'll never lose to some low-rank nobody, and then, bam, he swings that mop and clobbers Essen. Essen clenched his fist, shaking with disbelief at the brutal world they're stuck in, because all anyone ever chases are results and that's all that matters. So he finally gets it, numbers are the only yardstick, and strength is what makes a person matter. Essen locks his gaze on the prize racing ahead in his head, because all of them are just chasing the top, knowing he'd one day shut down guys like Keith, and even climb past Polaris. Morning washes over the harbor and a seagull just perches there like it owns the place, staring as the sun crawls over the horizon while. Back at the shop, Keith chowed down, finished up his breakfast, and leaned in to tell the owner thanks for the meal, which, Essen's eyes snap to it and he quickly downs 2 more, waving and thanking the old man before he heads out. He chased after Keith outside and shouted his name, trying to yank his attention back. Keith mangles his name and calls him Pessin, and Essen snaps back to get it right, then he asks if Keith can tag along to the dungeon. Keith just shrugs and says he'll do whatever he wants. Essen catches up to him, grinning wide, and thanks him for what he did yesterday. He tells me that things have been going pretty good lately, but he still feels like he's got a mountain to climb. He'd rather keep grinding than get complacent. Keith shoots him a smug look and shrugs like, "Come on, strong guys gotta help the weak guys, it's just what happens." Essen's done playing nice. He cuts Keith off, snapping that his advice was nothing but pure jerk energy, but as they keep heading forward, they suddenly stumble into a bunch of guys hauling a massive cart. Keith spots the cargo, demands to know if they really hauled those things out alive, and then he asks if some kind of hypnosis was used. Essen snaps back that he's never even heard of monsters being dragged out of a dungeon while they were still breathing. Keith tells everyone that some monsters get turned into ingredients and the fresh ones fetch a fortune. Yeah, it sounds brutal, but Essen just shrugs and brushes it off like it's all in a day's work. Keith can't take his eyes off that cart. Something about the whole setup reeks of wrongness. Then the two of them push forward, until they finally reach the cliff's edge, staring down at the water far below. Essen makes a bold call. He's ditching the group and striking out alone, saying it's only fair since they're both lone adventurers, so they split up. Keith leans in and reminds him loud and clear that teaming up with a weakling like him brings zero advantage, and Essen immediately snaps back, annoyed that Keith keeps repeating it every 5 seconds. He tells Keith just call out if trouble hits, but Keith only throws him a weak little grunt and barrels on like nothing happened. Waves thunder against the rocks as the two of them finally split apart and go their separate ways. The giant flower monster erupts in a piercing screech as it gets trapped mid-slam, and Essen goes all out with a massive attack. He roars at the top of his lungs, pouring every last ounce of strength into that finishing blow. He rockets into the sky, shouting his mighty sheer move, and when he comes down, the power hits another level boom. He smashes the monster flat and craters the ground like it was nothing. Essence just stands there for a beat, that massive blade chilling on his shoulder, and the smug satisfaction practically drips off him. He squints at the monster, convinced it's a leaf star, and his mind races about its skills, until a brutal, ear-splitting scream tears through the air. Essen freezes because that voice is Keith, plain as day, and then he rockets toward the sound, refusing to believe his friend is really in danger. He shouts, demanding Keith tell him where he is and whether he's okay, then instantly freezes in place the moment he spots a lone figure far off in the distance. It's Keith, but something's way off. Essen looks totally shaken and blurts out, "What happened to your arm?" He locks eyes on Keith's hand, stunned, and demands to know if a monster really caused all that damage. Then Keith just stares back and flips the question onto him. Was he the one who did it? Keith scoffs at the whole idea, insisting there's no way it's true, while he keeps his eyes glued to the floor. Keith casually flicks his finger toward the scorched ground and says his opponent is nothing but ash now. Essence just stands there, utterly stunned, realizing his own power alone never could have pulled off something that wild. He can't stop staring at the wreckage, his mind racing about what power could turn a monster into dust, while Keith snatches a potion. Keith rips the cork out of the bottle with his teeth and goes straight to treating his injuries. The liquid blasts his arm, and before he can even react, it starts healing on the spot, blazing with a sharp flash as the magic kicks in. Under the blazing sun, Essen shouts the gift's name as Keith flexes his smoking arm and proudly explains that his power is all about summoning flames. Keith flashes him a smug grin and fires back, jealous, because he's got the perfect gift for someone who's destined to reach the very top. Essen clocks that elemental powers are almost unheard of and insanely valuable, so yeah, it totally explains why Keith's acting like a legend. But he can't shake the question, does Keith really get scorched like that every time he fights? And Keith just shrugs, saying it's the price of the deal. Essen blurts out that the bill for all that burning ointment has to be insane, but he's already figured out that trusting nature to heal him would just waste too much time. Keith just stares ahead, sweat beading on his face, and insists, right through the pain, that this is the fate of the strong. Essen stares at him like he's lost in another world, then blurts out, "Why are you even still an adventurer if the downsides are this massive?" Big Keith shoots him a brutal stare, says he's said it a bunch of times already, and makes it crystal clear. His mind isn't changing. Keith and the others huddle at the cliff's edge, staring into the endless horizon, Then Keith grins and declares he'll become the strongest. He clenches his fist, brandishing the bandages and the pain etched across his face, and screams that he'll become the best, no matter what the world throws at him. The two of them break into a sprint down that endless, winding road, shrinking into tiny specks against a world so huge it feels unreal. Essen glares at him from behind, torn between fear and doubt, thinking, is power really worth tearing pieces off your own body, especially when everyone's got a limit? He squints at the runners fading in the distance and can't stop asking one burning question: how Keith's mindset is actually going to make him the strongest. Then his head whips around the second he hears someone nearby scream that the whole city is done for. Two guys bolt past Essen in full panic, and one yells that they've got to rush to the church and warn everyone about the journey in God right now. Keith and Essen stroll down the path, then Keith slams the brakes, stops cold, and demands, "What's going on?" From way out in the distance, someone yells that they found them, and Essen's completely stunned, while Nick goes into full panic mode, screaming for his big brothers. Nick sprints toward them, absolutely panicked and gasping for air, and Essen blurts out his name. Keith leans in as the kid curls over, struggling to breathe, and manages to choke out, "Something's wrong," at the port market. He looks absolutely terrified and screams that it's all going to hell because monsters are attacking the place right this second, and that leaves. Essen's jaw drops as Keith's smile dies. His face turns pitch black and dead serious in an instant. Keith doesn't say a single word. He rockets toward the city like a fired missile, and Essen can barely scream his name before he vanishes. Nick snaps at Essen to hurry up and follow, but she's still stuck in place, straining to catch up, trying to keep up with the pace. As sitting there, I feel the whole thing spiraling out of control, and I can't stop asking, what the hell is even going on? Smoke billows and rubble litters the ground ahead, people sprint for cover, and Essen just stands there staring, completely freaked out. The whole town is in shambles, people sprinting like crazy, clutching anything they can snatch, and the boy just stands there in the middle of it all, stunned, trying to make sense of how this nightmare even started. Nick tells him people were auctioning live monsters, and then, all at once, they erupted into full rampage mode. The boy is totally stunned that anyone would even dare sell monsters like that. I'm replaying earlier this morning when everything felt totally normal. Then boom, a massive blast of energy rockets straight into the sky. The boy sees that massive pillar of fire in the distance, and realizes Keith is already right in the middle of it, so Nick snaps at him to hurry to the port, because if he doesn't, things are about to get way worse. He fires back, "I've got this," and the two of them burst into a sprint, tearing through the terrified crowds. As the boy says he saw at least 10 of those things on a truck earlier, Nick fires back, "Did they all snap at the exact same time?" And the boy screams at Keith to stay safe, and to not pull anything reckless. Then boom, a colossal roar rips through the air as a giant swirl of power starts tearing the whole place apart. This giant beast gets absolutely obliterated by a brutal spinning blast, and debris erupts everywhere like the attack owns the whole battlefield. Keith is completely locked in, pounding through the fight without even realizing the monster's eyes are locked on him from below, tracking every single move. He starts counting 2, then 3 kills, then it hits him. He's already wiped out 4 of those monsters, standing right in the middle of the smoke and rubble. Then it slams into him, he's out of supplies. Panic spikes his sweat as memories crash in because he already burned through the very last of his burn medicine back when he was still wiping out the dungeon. Keith swivels his head at the swarm of crab monsters and thinks, yeah, on the way here, I made sure to drag in as many as I could right toward me. He could only hope he'd caught enough of them before they slipped away, because odds are some of these monsters were already spreading all over the city. His arm is already getting wrecked from all that pressure, and he can feel his body about to snap if he doesn't finish this right now. But he refuses to back off. He reels himself back, loading every last ounce of strength into one final, earth-shaking strike. Keith unleashes the volcano shot, smashing his fist straight into the monster's face with so much force it levels the whole place. The beast lets out this nasty creak as it absorbs the impact, but then it just glares back like, that's not the end, and you can tell it still has fight left in it. A girl nearby lets out a piercing scream as the danger cranks up even higher, while the person cowering in the ruins just freezes, terrified, unable to look away. Keith hammers it into his own head, he's strong enough to stare the monsters down and scream that they're finished. There's this wild fire in his eyes as he screams that he'll never let them rip the city apart. Right then, the boy and Nick burst into the area, sprinting hard, only to find Keith standing there with his arm wrecked beyond recognition. The second the boy spots what Keith's become, he bursts out yelling Keith's name. Keith just glances over and snaps, "Peasant," like he's not even feeling the pain. Keith tries to play it cool, but the kid instantly calls out how messed up his arm is. Keith just shrugs it off and insists it's no big deal as long as his right arm still works. But the boy doesn't buy it for a second. He leans in and demands, "Do you have any medicine left? I need to fix myself up." Keith admits he's completely out of supplies, standing amid the rubble with a grim, stone-faced stare. He shrugs it off like it's no big deal, because right now only he can pull it off. He realizes Nick dragged himself all this way to find them, so there's no backup left, just them. He knows he can't take every single one in one go, but he's still cracking his knuckles and getting ready to dive right back into the fight. Keith screams that he's taking out every single one of them by himself. A colossal explosion erupts, blasting the whole area and hurling rocks in every direction. The kid yanks Keith and yells for him to stop, saying his body's about to collapse, but Keith just fires back that it's none of his business. Refusing to back down, the boy shouts that he's joining the fight, and tells Keith to lock in on keeping those flames under control. Keith snaps at him that he's not getting help from anyone for a week and that he'd better haul himself out of the city before he ends up dead. But the boy just shrugs and asks, "Do we really have time to keep fighting?" A jolt of raw energy snaps through the air as the boy yells, "I'm done with this talking." He stares down with a grim look, brings up Yumi, and asks straight out, are they really going to push this as far as they already have? The boy digs in, plants his feet, and stands his ground as a wild surge of power finally erupts. Keith is so stunned he blurts "bastard," while Nick and the girl stand off to the side, terrified to their core. Keith stares at the boy's wild new look and blurts out, "Are you some monster wearing a human disguise?" But the boy shoots back, "You've got it all wrong." He thrusts his hand forward as it flares with a wild, strange glow, and he blurts out that he never meant to reveal it, because he already knew what would come, yet this power is his real. Kayeth stares at that glowing hand and realizes, boom, he can scout the whole town in a flash, even if he knows the boy is determined to do this part solo. Even with the plan in his head, Keith shouts that he can't just walk away and leave him behind. He tells the boy, "I'm handing you this spot until the city's safe," then snaps a warning. If the boy can't keep up, he's diving right back into the fight. Keith starts slipping away, but from far off someone yells that he's a bastard for what he's doing. He whips around to Nick and asks, "Can I take the girl and get us to where the adults are gathered?" Nick stares up at him and Keith shuts him down with a calm smile, saying it's alright and swearing that one day Nick will become an even greater adventurer than any of them. Nick nods and urges the girl to go, right as Keith screams at them to move, then adds one more thing, "Stay safe no matter what." The boy stares as they vanish, then tells Keith, "Don't you dare die out there." He grips that hope tight and swears he's betting his faith on Keith, the strongest. Keith told him to hang on for a second, basically saying selfishness is the way things are gonna roll for now. The boy shouts that they're in this side by side, then he launches into it right there. He drove himself past the edge as the monster's armor began to creak and groan under the crushing pressure. He rockets upward and vaults over the rooftops, sprinting across the city at full speed. He drops in like a meteor, slams down dead center in this tight little street, and right there, he spots a girl backed into a corner, gasping for air, trembling like crazy, while a monster looms right over her halfway through it hangs over her like a curse, blaming her for everything as she collapses into helpless tears. The boy surges in like lightning, slamming the creature with one brutal heavy strike that kicks it back just enough for him to rush over and make sure the girl is okay. She manages to get the words out, but she can't stop herself from warning him this fight isn't done yet. He whips his head back, then realizes he didn't finish the monster off just as it starts to move again. Essen slams into a wall of giant claws, and with one brutal impact, a blood-curdling scream tears through the air as she fires off her power and shoves the forest monsters into a deep, deadly sleep, stopping them from attacking, and the blonde girl beside her is staring in pure shock, while Essen just stands there looking utterly stunned. The girl laughs it off, but you can tell he's still a little rattled because Essen's gift isn't just good, it's on a whole other level. She says that with power like that, even total newbies can hunt monsters safely. So, since her own power is still pretty weak, having S step in and back her up is a huge win. Then her whole vibe flips and she fires back, asking why they don't just break up the party. She tells Essen she never truly fights, she just puts targets to sleep, and now that she's finally D rank, she's convinced it'd be way faster to just take the monsters out herself. Then she turns her gaze toward at Essen, her face twisted with pure disgust. She snapped that it drove her nuts to watch Essen stroll in and grab all the rewards. The guys from before start drifting away and one of them blurts, so her power really just knocks monsters out cold. He says it'd be awesome if it could work on high rank stuff, but she has zero combat experience, so getting anyone to buy it is an uphill battle. Out of nowhere, a sketchy, big-nosed guy barges in and tells Essen she's got to team up with him. He tells her, "I've got a plan to rake in a fortune," then drops that he heard her gift is downright one of a kind, and that fires Essen up like crazy. He tells her it's a job only she can handle and she immediately shoots back, "Wait, are you serious?" The story slams into a savage attack, blood erupts everywhere, Essen shrieks in agony, and the boy finally takes the brutal hit. He's hunched over, gasping like that move just crushed every bone in his body. Essen just snaps, she starts bawling, tears pouring down, and keeps apologizing over and over for what happened. The boy simply wipes the blood from his face and tells her with a shaky breath that it was a total close call right at that moment. While Essen asks if he's okay, he shrugs it off, telling her it's no big deal, his injury isn't even that bad. Still, she just stares, tears blazing in her eyes, and then he looks back and finally realizes who she really is. The boy starts clicking pieces together and blurts out, "Wait, are you the same girl I saw earlier this morning?" And then it hits him, she was part of the group that set that monster loose outside, and Essen completely crumples, falling apart in the worst way. She breaks down in tears, blurting out, "I'm sorry," begging that her gift had been stronger because then none of this would have happened in the first place. The boy demands answers, staring at her like, "Wait, did you really use your gift to bring that monster down?" Right then, the monster's eye slams open, and as it fully wakes up, aggression hits like a wave. Essen is still losing it and blurting apologies, but the boy snaps at her to stop saying sorry and lock in because things are spiraling fast, and he blurts out, "Can you use your ability on them one last time?" A monster lurches forward to attack as someone screams that their friend is in serious danger. Essen just freezes in fear, blurted out that she can't do it, and the boy is left staring, completely stunned. She tells them that once they wake up, their bodies start fighting back against her power. Then the boy snaps, yelling how she even managed to sell them alive, and she just collapses into tears, apologizing over and over. Essen sobbed, knowing in her bones this was dangerous, but the moment her gift was finally needed, she was too thrilled to stop. She moved before she could even think, and the boy starts snapping everything into place, recalling those other two guys, thinking they didn't bring Essen to help at all but to use her power, but he slams that thought down fast because something way worse is right in front of him, and he tells himself he's got to handle the disaster he's in first. He just has no idea what comes next, but first he had one mission: get everyone to safety and figure out where Keith vanished to. Then bam, a giant claw rips through the next building and slams into both of them, leaving them totally blindsided. The boy can barely squeak out a single word as he gapes at the wreckage. He's completely frozen, staring at the destruction like he can't even breathe, stunned. Staring at the monster that just stormed in, he craned his neck at the giant beast, and snaps it as a leaf serpent, massive enough to make the boy's stomach drop because he instantly knows things just got way worse. This monster is infamous as the greediest eater in the whole realm. Give it anything, and it'll chomp down on it. When the boy finally realizes why the town got smashed like that, there's just no way some ordinary leaf crab did all this damage alone. Essen's a total wreck. She's crying her eyes out as she blurts out that she seriously thought the monster would taste amazing with sauce, like she could cash in on a massive fortune. And then when the boy says, sure, it could feed hundreds, but there's no way you can actually cook something that huge, he explodes, yelling that the mountain is waking up. Essen just keeps blurting apologies nonstop, calling herself a reckless idiot for landing them in this nightmare. yet she can't even dwell on it because the monster rockets forward out of the rubble with a thunderous roar, smashing straight through the debris. The two of them shriek as they barely lunge aside, just in time to dodge the giant creature's rampage, and the beast lunges out of the smoke right in front of them, and its giant fangs flash like a nightmare. The boy clenches his teeth and it hits him. This situation is way worse than he ever imagined. He knows the moment he tries to lug Essen with him, his legs won't be quick enough to reach the roof, so he clenches his jaw and commits. He'll stay right here, hold the line. So he whips around, barks Essen. To snap her focus, she jerks her head back at him, eyes wide, completely thrown off as she stammers out an answer and braces herself, desperate to hear what he's about to demand. The boy clutches Essen tight as the monster's jaws snap shut right behind them. Then he vows he'll deal with the beast alone, shouting for her to run while she still can. But she hesitates, and the boy immediately shuts her down, saying that running alone won't cut it. When she tries to explain, he stares at her, completely confused. She reveals her special gift, hypnotism, and tells him she can hypnotize anyone she targets, dropping them into instant sleep. But here's the catch: using it yanks every bit of the target's hatred straight onto her. She's back at the harbor market, watching Keith, the flame adventurer, stand his ground and buy them time. They slip away, but the monsters he unleashed keep hunting them down anyway. So the boy finally connects the dots. She's talking about Keith, then explains that now they're separated, the monster's hatred shouldn't be crushing her anymore, but the skill's lingering aftershock might still be stuck to her. The kid asks if that means the only monsters left will be the ones Keith's fighting. Then this leaf serpent, Essen, drops the truth and confirms he's dead on, which sets up what happens. The boy warns that the enemy will always go after her first, no matter what, and Essen's nerves explode as she nods along to the plan. The boy tells her, just keep running exactly like you are, and she's so shocked it freezes her for a split second, right? And before she even has time to think, the boy rockets onto the roof while she bolts through the streets, heart pounding. Essen has totally snapped, eyes spilling tears, fist clenched tight, begging him, don't leave me, as panic screams through her because she's terrified that he's really about to ditch her. Then he snaps back that he'd never do that, and right then he explodes into a scream, yelling for her to get down as something fast streaks past her face. She jerks down, shrieking in full panic right as the boy lunges. He shouts the special move, *** forest cat's sharp claws ***, and crashes forward with pure power, swinging like it's his last shot. A brutal impact slams the ground right behind Essen, and she doesn't slow down for even a heartbeat, while the monster's huge mouth hangs open as it reels. It gets completely obliterated, dark energy and blood burst all over the place, while his essence stays curled on the ground, wrecking the whole area as the scene cuts off. Dark splashes from the blast paint everything around her, and she just sits there in the wreckage, shaking, stunned, trying to make sense of what she's just survived. Then she tilts her head up, soaked head to toe in that dark stuff, barely finding the words. She stammers and blurts out if he really just saved her life. But when she searches for him, she spots him perched high on top of a tall street pole, just sitting there like it's the most normal thing in the world. And then he realizes his plan actually worked for real. But the moment the truth hits, disappointment creeps in. He mutters under his breath, swearing it's such a shame he couldn't snag the skill he was hunting. The boy leaps off the pole, blurts out to S that he's sorry he used her as bait, and she can barely get a word out before he says he has to bolt fast because things are about to get out of control. He knows the Church of the Travel God will show up soon, so he begs her to keep his secret gift under wraps and not tell a soul. He rockets down the alley, yelling over his shoulder that he's counting on her to stay silent. Essence doesn't move off the ground. Stunned, she just gawked as he vanished, then looked down and realized she was drenched in the monster's dark mess, still trying to process it all. Massive rocks and debris start raining down everywhere, whole ground is trembling from the fight's aftershocks. And then the boy spots the very last monster still standing. Before it can even blink, he declares its time is up, forcing it to freeze there as his energy starts going wild, and the second that power swirls around him, he looks totally transformed, like a whole different person. The monster unleashes one final, desperate screech, and the boy screams back, then barrels forward with a brutal, massive strike that sends everything. A massive explosion tears through the street, and when the light finally fades, he screams at the top of his lungs, leaving nothing behind. All that's left is a crater where the monster used to stand. Then he freezes amid the wreckage for a heartbeat, lifts his head, and spots someone sprinting across the rooftops. The boy snaps out of the chaos, screams that it's finally over, and yells for Keith, shouting that they wiped out every single monster in the area. But then even when his body's running on empty, he swears the fire inside him is still blazing. He keeps forcing himself past the edge, right up until his body finally snaps and he slams into the dark water with a thunderous splash, then sinks straight into the chaos. He hauls himself up just enough to scan the chaos, screaming Keith's name like his life depends on it, trying to find anything that proves they won, while both of them hang there, gasping, bracing for the next move. Both of them crumpled straight into the sludge, completely wiped out after everything that just went down. The boy crawls over and leans right over Keith, his voice slipping low as he calls his friend's name, like he's about to snap in half. Keith finally cracks his eyes open and snaps at the boy, saying he's way too loud. Then he barely manages to ask him to stop yelling. Keith looks up at the sky with a worn-out grin, stubbornly insisting he's still the strongest one out there. The kid lets out a quick laugh, telling Keith, "Seriously, you're something else," and then the two of them just sprawl in the wreckage. Keith blurts out, "So, him being back means the town's finally safe?" The boy nods and says, "Yeah, just to make sure it's finally over." The boy blurts out that he got delayed. He'd been battling a leaf crab and a leaf serpent, hands full the whole time. And now he's staring down this towering monster, praying they actually won, because it doesn't have a single scratch on it making. Until it hits him, he should have seen this coming. He blurts out to the others that if they knew how brutal this was, they should have warned him, and then it smashes into him. His wall of fire doesn't even come close to stopping it. He freezes in silence for a beat. Ben refuses to leave anything to luck. He declares he's turning back right now, patrolling the streets one last time just to be absolutely sure. But before anything else, he yanks Keith by the collar and drags him off, insisting he's taking him straight to a clinic, somewhere to get help. Keith snaps and starts losing control, screaming "bastard" at the boy and ordering him to let go, insisting he can walk by himself, that being carried only makes his burns burn worse, while he still pounds his chest about how he's the strongest guy there is. The boy fires back that if he's truly that strong, he can take it. Then he shrugs off every complaint like it doesn't even matter. They burn through the rest of the day sprinting across the city. Then they still have to slam into the guild branch for a quick round of questioning, and by the time they finally drag themselves back to the inn, the boy is completely wiped out. He practically faceplants onto the bed, says "I'm done," and drops off to sleep the instant he hits the mattress. The very next morning hits and the boy bolts out of the inn, convinced the clinic is right down the road. He's just strolling along when a girl in a white cape locks eyes with him. Then she freezes mid-step and stops dead in her tracks. She looks ridiculously happy to see him and even blurts out, "Are you the Essen guy?" like she already knows everything. That leaves him totally baffled. She's right, he admits, but he has zero clue who she is or what she's hunting for. She lights up because she finally got his name right, then slaps on a dramatic pose and declares, "I'm Felsi, right?" She's breaking it all down. Yep, she's a priest from the Church of the Journey in God, and then she leans in like, "Got a minute?" because she wants to talk about the total mess that went down yesterday. The boy just stands there listening while she reintroduces herself, and she makes sure he gets one thing clear: she's with the church. And right there in the middle of the path, she presses him one last time, "So, are you free to talk about what happened?" He looks worn out, but he flashes a forced smile and tells her, "I'm good, yeah, I can talk for a bit," even though deep in his gut, he already knew the church would crash the moment things blew up the way they did. He'd just been holding his breath, waiting for them to finally show up. Felsi lets out a huge breath of relief and blurts, "Thank goodness," as she figures Essen's probably exhausted from everything happening lately, but then she grabs his attention and tells him, "We both have to do our best." She starts to walk away and snaps that he should follow, while Essen trails behind, grumbling that church people are way more trouble than monsters ever are. Turns out the Church of the God of Travels isn't some mysterious cult. It's just a whole crew of people who throw their lives behind that one deity, serving it with everything they've got. They also take in adventurers with special gifts, and their whole operation is basically split into two big jobs. The very first thing they do, they hand out blessings to anyone bold enough to join their faith. Whenever someone hits 12 or decides to convert, they rush to the church to grab that sacred blessing, the one everyone calls a gift. Their second job is way more brutal, because they're the ones who punish any follower who dares break their rules. While the regular government sweats over everyday crimes, anything that dares to break church law gets swallowed by the priest's full control. So if some adventurer messes up and a monster destroys a town, the priests are the ones who come barreling in to dig into the wreckage and figure out what happened. And what they're facing right now is the exact kind of nightmare. As they head down the road, Essen's worry spikes, because the church doesn't just run on rules, it clings to them like a sickness. He gets it right in their eyes, a gift is nothing but a weapon meant to cut down monsters. As he scans the area, he can't shake the thought, God's Church of the Journey treats monsters like they don't even deserve forgiveness, like the very idea of them is unforgivable. And it's even worse for him, he knows his own body can turn into a monster, and if anyone ever uncovers the truth, they'll hunt him down without mercy. Felsi cheerfully cuts through his thoughts, grinning as she beckons him inside, and before he can think twice, he follows her. They step into a room and she orders him to wait for a second, then disappears, leaving him frozen there, dying to know what she's planning. Essence drops into a seat, tries to get dead serious, and says he's ready to lay out the case details. But Felsi barrels in, slams him with a confident smile, and says she already has the full picture. She went and read every single investigation record herself. Right before he even manages to answer, a huge spread of food gets brutally slammed onto the table, sausages, eggs, and oysters piled high. Essen just freezes on the spot, staring in total disbelief at the mountain of food she dragged out, like her brain can't even catch up. Essen goes wide-eyed and speechless when they call him the hero who saved the whole town, and Felsi just shrugs it off like it's nothing, then drops the bomb, saying she wanted to see him so badly she showed up first thing in the morning before breakfast even hit the table. Essen stares at her and shoots a question like, "You're really about to eat all that food right here?" She dives into the food like it's a personal mission, stuffing her face and shutting down any chance of sharing. Then Essen casually tells her he doesn't even want a bite. He's determined to set the record straight. He insists the real hero is Keith, and claims he only chipped in a little bit. Felsi swears he's not trying to humble brag, he insists it's the truth, then tells her to cut the conversation short because he needs to go see Keith. She tells him the monster hunt got so chaotic that some details must have slipped through the cracks in the official records, though maybe, just maybe, she still made sure to say in her retelling that she gave him and his friend a huge amount of credit. When he finally hears it, the weight crushing his chest vanishes, and he blurts out that knowing the story out there is a massive, unreal relief. Felsi braces himself to jump straight into the questions, and Essence just sits there, totally stuck trying to figure out what on earth he should ask her first. Essen's shoulders tense up and she tells her, "Relax, everything's exactly like it says in the report." Felsi flashes a smile and nods, then tells him, "I need you to tell me the whole story yourself. I have to hear it straight from you." Essen looks totally awkward as he fesses up. He didn't even witness the moment the monsters kicked off their rampage. He tells them he only learned about the attack on the way back from the dungeon, and right then he fell. And Felsi keeps chewing through her meal, nodding like it finally clicks. He wasn't even in town when that incident kicked off. A sharp glint flashes in her eyes as she says, "Yeah, but somehow, he already knew exactly what the culprit looked like." Essen replays the memory in his head and locks it in. He only recognized that one person and nothing else but as he brushes past her by the dungeon entrance, he shrugs and admits he doesn't even know her name, or anything about her at all. He demands to know if they've finally caught the culprit, but Felsi shoots him a playful look and shuts him down with, "It's a secret." She finally blurts out that the hypnotist girl is locked in a back room, and Essen just freezes there, stunned, trying to process it. Felsi twirls her forkful like it's Exhibit A, then rips into how wild it is that a criminal would just hand themselves over like that. Essen looks totally rattled and demands to know what's really going to happen to that girl next. Felsi's face turns grim and she tells him, straight to his face, that this is going to end with the death penalty. She takes a laid-back sip, then smirks and says it only happens after they've stripped the person of their gift. And that's the terrifying thing about the church, everything suddenly hinges on whatever the priest decides right there on the spot. Felsi spits out that sure, they all deserve to die, but this girl, she's the most guilty of the whole bunch by far. She says hypnotizing monsters is one thing, but losing control and sending the whole town into danger is a whole other level of worse. Essen's got that uneasy look, and he blurts out that he thought every bit of this was already covered in the report. He reveals the girl's gift comes with a nasty catch. Every time she tries to evacuate, it yanks the monsters straight the other way. Even after she messed up, he insists, furious, that she's the only reason the town didn't get hit way harder. Felsi shoots a creepy look into the room and asks, straight up, if her own rank jumps the moment she kills the monster she dragged here. Essen's stunned, no words escape him, and they just freeze in that brutal silence while his tea slowly turns cold. After a moment, she cracks a smile and tells him she basically has the whole story figured out. Essen tries to play it cool, then tells her the truth. He's just relieved he could finally be useful. Felsi locks eyes with him and admits she's genuinely relieved, because with him and Keith here, the city's got real protection. Then she dips her head low and delivers a proper, church-wide thank you to him for everything he did. Essen looks wildly out of place, then blurts out a shaky, simple answer like he's trying not to panic. He decides it's time to go. He tells everyone he's leaving right now, then, right as he steps out. Felsi drops a wild rumor. People are claiming they've seen a monster that looked human, or a human that looked like a monster. And she locks eyes with him, grilling him. Does he know anything about it? Felsi locks eyes with him, flashes a polite smile, and asks if Lord Essen has any plans. Essen loses it completely, then screams at the top of his lungs that he knows absolutely nothing. He tries to brush it off, claiming the whole chaos left everyone scrambled, so they probably just misread what they saw. Felsi just nods and goes, I get it, even you have no idea what's going on, even though they're stuck in the middle of the city. But then her whole vibe turns pitch black as she whispers that if a monster is really out there, disguising itself like a human, her church had no choice left, she'd force the full execution herself. Essence just stood there with a fake smile plastered on his face, sweat pouring off him as terror slammed in from what he'd heard. Then Felsi suddenly swings back to full-on sunshine, grinning as she blurts, sorry, I didn't mean to steal so much of your time. As he slips away, she grins, waves at him and calls out her thanks, begging that they'll meet again real soon. Essen staggers into the woods by himself, completely wiped out, still trembling after that terrifying close call. Essen's still trembling from that conversation, swearing to himself he'll never, ever lay eyes on that priestess again. He pushes his way back toward that small stone building perched on the edge of the woods. In that quiet clinic, where laundry hangs out to dry and the air feels like it's finally calming down. But Keith looks completely wrecked, bandages choke him from head to toe like a living mummy. Essen strides into the room, whispers Keith's name under his breath, and you can tell he's worried about something big. Nick clocks him instantly and roars for his big bro, while Essen realizes the kid actually pulled it off and made it. Yor lets out a relieved breath, lifts her eyes and smiles. Is the boy from the restaurant with you? Then she can't help but beam, thankful that Essen's safe. Essen rushes to Keith's bedside and grills everyone for the real update on how he's holding up. Keith's voice rattles out from under the blankets. The doctor says I'm healed, but I've gotta stay right here until my new skin fully settles. Essen tells them how doctors get a divine healing gift from the gods too, then grins wide. Because the moment he sees his friend will be okay, all the fear finally melts away. Keith starts growling out muffled noises under his blankets and Essen leans in close, trying to catch every sound. Keith hammers out a furious yell through the gauze, but Essen just shrugs and tells him he can't make out a single word. Still, he's glad Keith has enough energy to be mad. Keith slaps his bandaged hand over his face and growls at the kids, "Don't look at me, this is too pathetic." Essen keeps staring at them, and he can't shake the fear that this mess might scar the kids for life. Nick won't buy it for a second and shuts Keith down, saying he's wrong, because in Nick's eyes, Keith is seriously awesome and that totally can. Snags the big guy completely off guard, and Nick keeps the pressure on, telling him he was awesome in yesterday's fight, and that he's still just as cool today. Yua lunges in immediately to back him up, then turns to Keith with bright, hopeful eyes. Pressing him, she asked if someone like her could ever grow up to become an adventurer, just like him. Keith gets all flustered, turns away with a grumpy huff, and Essen just stands there like, wow, what weirdos. Even with all the grumbling going on, Nick and Yua just stay by the bed, grinning like proud parents, soaking in their friend's victory. You wave goodbye to the guys as they head out, and Nick calls after you, I gotta get back, I'm the one who runs this shop. Essen left Keith all alone with nothing but an empty air of promise, then watched them disappear and blurts out that he just knows those kids are going to become incredible adventurers, and it totally throws Keith. Essen keeps pushing forward, firing back at the big guy. After watching you fight like that, there's no way I'm not sure you'll crush it too. Keith lets out a quick huff and tells him, yeah, I already knew that, like it's nothing, and then he just sprawls there in his bandages, finally catching a long overdue moment of peace to rest. Later, Essen suddenly pops back in and bluntly says, I've got a favor to ask, you can't dodge this. But he freezes for a split second, stunned out of his mind because Keith actually, finally used his real name. We snap to a whole new spot. The E-rank dungeon called the Reef of the Roaring Tides where Essen finally catches up with Keith outside. He fires off a quick once-over and says it's great to see him back, looking razor-sharp and in perfect shape, and Keith just shrugs it off and fires back at Essen, like, who does he think he's talking to since he's obviously fine? Keith barks at Essen to keep his focus while they move, but Essen flashes a grin and tells him to hand everything over to him as they finally lock eyes with a hulking, one-eyed beetle monster that looks absolutely set on destroying them. The creature gets blasted by a massive burst of energy, and water and debris explode into the air in every direction. The story snaps back to the hospital, and a voice yells Essen's name like it's an emergency. Staring out over the forest, a voice cuts in, saying they've only got one request to make, and back in the room, Essen is totally stunned. This guy actually wants a favor from him. Keith shoots his eyes away, cheeks burning, and admits it like it's embarrassing. Keith snaps at him, yelling if he's got a problem with it, and that's when Essence bursts into laughter, bringing up all the times Keith used to call him a loser. He shoots back that he's just messing around, then leans in and demands to know what favor you need. Keith admits that those casual jokes somehow make everything click for him, and just like that, he finally gets to the point, telling Essen he needs his help for a monster hunt. Keith spots it and calls it a leaf shrimp, and Essen immediately fires back. So that's the huge beast everyone's calling the Reef of Tides strongest. Keith feels that calling in his bones, but he can't move. He just slumps on the edge of the bed, fists wrapped in bandages clamping so tight they start to tremble. Keith starts to open up about himself, but Essen just stares, watching him trip over every word. Then he suddenly snaps, shouting that he's weak, and glares at his limits like they've betrayed him, totally crushed and frustrated. He tells them, yeah, my gift is the strongest out there, but my body can't take that kind of power. And because that dungeon is drenched in water, it's a nightmare for him. His only real shot is grinding out a draw. He stares dead ahead and finally admits it. Years ago, he just gave up on ever clearing that place. Essen can't even wrap his head around it. Like, how is this coming from him, especially after the wild stunt Keith yanked just yesterday? Keith snaps into a serious stare and blurts out why he's acting out. He finally blurted out that seeing that monster just dragged his thoughts back to his hometown, and that was the whole reason. Keith says he truly doesn't think anyone would unleash those monsters on purpose. Then he stops like he's about to reveal the real reason. Keith tells Essen he's seen a monster stampede before, the one that wiped out his entire village, and Essen just sits there, hanging on every word as Keith explains how it all. He's about to apologize, but Essen cuts him off and tells him, don't even worry about it. And Keith goes on from there, saying that, even though his home got shattered in the chaos, there was one bright silver lining in all of this, because even after all that chaos and destruction, not a single person died. He stares back at it all and finally understands it was just all thanks to one fearless adventurer who saved everyone. Then he got smashed so badly he had to hang it up, and he could have kept fighting if he just waited for backup. But Keith didn't hesitate. He threw himself to save the people right in front of him, and as he replays that moment, he can't stop thinking about how that man planted his feet and defended every single villager alone. Keith glances at Essen and tells him that. He tells him that's what real strength actually looks like, and Essen drinks it all in, grinning. Finally, Keith spilled the real reason why he had said it the moment he started getting stronger himself. Keith lifts his head off the hospital pillow and tells the kid he's gotta snag that leaf shrimp bounty because the boy is caught off guard, so he blurts the monster's name again, staring like, why would they ask that? Keith makes it crystal clear that one specific item matters. If they tear it down, the guild will hand them a reward called the Water Spirit's Blessing, a rare healing power that can soothe burns and drag the pain down fast. Exactly what he needs to stand back up on his feet, and the boy eats it up, grinning wide like he just struck gold, saying that this reward feels like it was tailor-made for him. Keith spots the boy smirking and his patience snaps on the spot. He snaps back, yelling what's so funny about that stupid face, but the mood snaps. He gets dead serious and demands to know why this kid is going so out of his way to help him, and him alone. The boy blurts it out. He can tell they've both got the same kind of fire burning inside, so he figures it's time to move on. The boy whips aside just in time as the monster slams into the water with a massive shell coming at him. He barely dodges the hit, then flashes a grin, because he just realized this massive monster moves way faster than it ever should. Keith grumbles that the slippery ground is ruining everything for him, but the boy snaps back, quit whining, and calls him a slow poke. Keith's face hardens and he shoots the boy a stern warning, mess this up and we're both finished. The boy just stares up at the giant creature, cracking a joke like, glad you're looking so good today, huh? Even as massive waves hammer them from every side as the monster turns wild and aggressive. Drenched to the bone, the boy steadies himself and tells himself, my job is simple, I'm the bait, so he surges in and slams a lightning strike straight into the monster's tough shell. It's gotta be frustrating, but the boy knows the truth. He's got nowhere near Keith's raw power, and this thing is built different, way tougher than the crabs he's faced before. And he knows Keith needs a minute to soak up enough energy to unleash a true finishing move. The plan is straight up genius. The boy will race in, whittle the monster's health down with pure speed and wear it out, then Keith steps in to finish it, so the boy starts hopping from rock to rock, and he drags that giant beast into a frantic water chase. The boy keeps firing back, taunting the beast like, sure, you've got power, but you only know how to run in straight lines. He's feeling great about the whole plan, convinced that dodging that thing won't be nearly as hard as it sounds. He yells that a beast that big will burn out in seconds, and all Keith has to do is stand there and wait for him to finally get. He didn't even see it coming. A colossal shockwave slammed into him and it sent him flying before he could react. From the sidelines, Keith spots the impact, jerks his head up, and blurts out Essence's name like he's about to lose his mind. He snaps his teeth shut, screams for his friend again, and his eyes go huge as it hits him. Yeah, things just got way worse. They clocked it way too late, the shrimp-s pulling out its specialty, a cannon of compressed air built to blast straight through anything in its way. The monster blasts out another gigantic shot, ripping straight through the water and blasting waves crashing in every direction. Keith lets out a frustrated grunt and launches into action, sprinting through the spray and smoke as fast as he can because he finally catches up to the kid, asks if he's okay, and braces to shield him from everything that's left behind. Keith fixes his gaze straight ahead, eyes bulging, drenched in sweat as the weight of their situation finally crashes down. The kid tries to apologize for letting his guard down, but Keith snaps back hard, saying you don't get to treat the enemy lightly just because you're on the same team. Keith checks on the boy, can you still move? And the kid nods, so Keith snaps, good, we've gotta regroup right now. Explaining he had to burn through his flame charge just to yank off that save, and leaving the boy shaking in fear over what happens next. The kid blurts out, is there any way we can recharge right now? But there's zero time to talk. Right as another massive surge of energy rips through the battlefield, Keith has to scramble out of the way before it crushes him. Keith grunts through his teeth because the monsters picked him as the main target, and he can feel the nightmare about to slam into full force. But he halts for a split second, eyes locking on the beast through the swirling smoke, and then it hits him. Something's wildly wrong. The monster drills its single eye into both of them, then charges up its weapons like it's about to unleash hell. And Keith finally clicks. Since there are two of them, the monster's got two cannons primed, ready to blast the second they fire. Heat breaks out across the boy's skin as the truth finally lands, and he blurts, So what does this actually mean for us? As the monster starts blasting everything, Keith snaps to it. This beast is gunning for both of them at once and it forces them. The kid snarls under his breath and lunges through the dirt just to stay ahead of the. He's totally wiped out and he realizes they don't even get a chance to breathe because the attacks keep crashing down like this. So Keith barrels ahead, bandages wrapped all over him, and right then someone yells Essen's name as Keith pushes to find an opening, so he strikes right then and a huge burst of smoke suddenly blankets the whole area. Smoke surges across the field and for one heart-stopping second it blots them out of the monster's sight and the attacks finally grind to a halt. The boy snaps out of it, stunned, and wonders if Keith's gift can really shut everything down, only for Keith to tell him it's just a distraction and it won't last. He's basically calling it out. Playing it safe is draining them to broke, and he knows damn well that just hiding every time that monster shoots won't win this. Once the burn medicine runs dry, they'll have to stop for the day, and the boy just stares at his ruined clothes, nodding along because he's not about to spend another cent on a place to sleep. Keith steals a quick glance at the boy, then fires off the question, does his gift really let him transform into any monster? But the boy just shakes his head, then he snaps, it doesn't work like that. The stuff he eats from those monsters doesn't come back as monsters, it turns into brand new skills for him to use. And Keith can't believe a gift that steals and devours exists. He laughs that the kid might even turn into a monster one day. And it totally rubs the boy the wrong way. He snaps at Keith to stop saying that creepy stuff. Keith shoots him a hard, serious look, tells him, don't worry, and promises that if it ever happens, he'll be the one to step in and handle it himself. Leaving the boy feeling anything but reassured. He can't tell if Keith's genuinely trying to help or if he's just got a little too much intensity, but right now, they've got bigger trouble. Keith blurts out that none of them have monster skills strong enough to even scratch the beast they're up against. So the kid blurts out, just eat it and steal its power. But the second he tries, he realizes it's way harder than that, because getting anywhere near that monster feels like walking straight into a suicide mission. But he decides he'll be the one to make everyone notice it next round, so he hunts for the tiniest weak spot like it's his only shot. He's basically fishing for answers. Are the antennae unguarded? And the second the thought hits, panic kicks in hard because he's sure that if he makes a move, that thing will just spear straight through his throat. Keith is fuming as he grips the kid with a hard stare, asking who messed up their plan in the first place, then snapping, step back, let me handle this. But the boy can't hide his worry. He fires a reminder at Keith. Even if he manages to bite into the monster, there's no promise the skill he gets will be the one that actually saves them. So Keith admits he knows that for sure. He's betting that even if it's not a perfect fix, stacking more weapons into their arsenal has to beat doing nothing. The two of them lock eyes, steel in their gaze, then they both yell, time to move, and the giant monster just looms in the middle of the lake, totally still, like it's waiting for them to come to it. Suddenly, a gigantic burst of water erupts straight in front of them, blasting their focus and leaving them stunned for a split second. Keith plants himself on a rock in the middle of the water, glaring with pure frustration as he realizes his attack didn't land the way he'd planned. He thrusts his arms up as raw power flares to life around them, admitting he never meant for it to go this way, but for now, he's stepping in as the decoy. He unleashed a massive attack from the monster. Blast after blast sent water exploding everywhere around him. As Keith braces himself, he spots the crucial truth. Those monster attacks drain all their bite the moment they're launched from far away. The monster slammed in with a brutal strike and the boy braced his defense. Boom! A massive shockwave ripped through everything. That energy keeps whipping around, getting trapped in a roaring, spinning vortex. The boy finally clocks it. Those two powers aren't clashing, they're canceling each other out. But Keith locks in, straight up says this isn't a cancellation, it's synergy, like it was always meant to happen. They both barrel through the blast side by side, throwing everything they've got into one massive counterattack. The girl's eyes stay glued as the boy charges straight at the monster, while Keith stays locked onto the chaos of the fight. A notification pops up and hits him with it. He just unlocked the leaf shrimp blank cannon skill. The boy yells that he'll use it right now as he charges forward, and then he unleashes a massive blast that tears through the water like a spear, charging straight for the monster. He's stunned that the attack's recoil slams into him way harder than he ever expected. The boy swears his last move still didn't take down the monster. Then Keith explodes, shouting that it's totally fine, leaving the kid stuck there, stunned. Totally stunned, Keith breaks down how the monster's air cannon works by squeezing air inside its pincers, and he realizes that if he blasts his flames at the exact same moment as that air cannon, they'll smash together and unleash something absolutely massive. They both strain under the crushing pressure as the monster relentlessly shoves back. Keith screams that there's zero time to waste, then shoves the boy forward and orders him to blast the air cannon at full power. The boy fires back, asking if a move like that can truly seal the win, and Keith admits he has no clue, but still, they've got to take the shot. The boy takes the leap and trusts him, then declares, "I'm in," because Keith blasts out his prominence flames as the boy launches his own attack at the very same moment. Two powers smash together, forming a colossal beam that rockets straight into the monster's chest. And the moment everything hits, it detonates, blasting a massive hole clean through the beast's core. Keith and the boy lean in tight, watching their combined attack slam straight home. The monster gets obliterated, vaporized by a massive explosion that blasts smoke everywhere and swallows the whole area. When the dust finally clears, the two of them stand amid the wreckage of the beast they just crushed. The boy starts going wild, yelling that they finally got him, while Keith just stands there frozen in place. The boy shot him a thumbs up, looking insanely cool, and the kid bragged that the entire win happened because of his fast, clutch thinking. Keith just grins and goes, "Of course," then brags a little about being the strongest, like hello, that's kind of the point. He dives down to snatch a monster part, and with a hopeful grin he blurts, "Will these shrimp legs really land me the water spirit's blessing?" He stares at the prize and spots a scorch mark from the blast, but he shrugs it off. There's no way it won't still work. He raises his leg to the sky, locked in thought, convinced this is the move that'll push him into a brand new level. Kate fires off, "So what's next?" And the boy cringes, admitting he's broke. He has to bolt home because he can't even pay for an inn. The boy glances up and fires off a question to Keith. "What on earth are you planning to do next?" Now Keith says he's sticking around for a while because he promised he'd help train his brand new disciple. The boy realizes this is the moment they split for good, so he bids his goodbye, while Keith leans in and says he's hoping they'll both be top-tier adventurers the next time their paths collide. The boy flashes a grin and says, "Yep, this is exactly what I'm gonna do." As they split and head in opposite directions, the boy leans in and tells him, "You really helped me out, thanks." Keith whips his head back with a grin and hollers out a huge thank you, loud enough to steal the moment. The boy bursts into laughter and tells him, "You're totally welcome." They slam in one last solid fist bump, then kick it and head out for real. Everything whips around to the massive stone entrance of the main headquarters. That's the official guild hall where every top-tier adventurer crowds in, hunting for their next big job. Polaris is just strolling along when, boom, someone's voice from behind her screams her name. Turns out it's Wellness. She's slumped against the wall, smiling sweetly as she tells her, "You look beautiful today." She's not buying any of it. She challenges him, asking straight up if he's been lying, and demands he wait while she comes back. Wellness, the rank 73 high-level adventurer, just bursts out laughing, saying it was pure coincidence, but Polaris doesn't even flinch. She snaps at him to quit tailing her, making it brutally clear she's got zero interest in joining his party. She locks eyes with him and snaps that he'll only drag her pace down. Wellness slaps the setback with a grin, then casually admits, yeah, she's still just as brutal as she's always been. He starts walking beside her, admitting his gift wasn't built to hurt, so it probably won't match the kind of person she is. Even so, he's still convinced their abilities clash in the best possible way, like they'd become the perfect team when the fight starts. Then his tone hardens and he admits that's not even the real reason he came to see her, leaving Polaris utterly baffled. Wellness starts telling me he was seriously shocked the other day. He clocked her checking the ranking board, then boom, she sprinted full speed down to the lower district. Polaris fires the question straight at him, "Were you tailing me?" but he just chuckles it away, claiming a noble girl like her has no business lurking in a filthy place like this. She snaps back, "Not your business," tells him to quit the trash talk and to move because she's done listening, but he locks eyes with her and straight up asks if he's really been following her. Wellness paused mid-motion, trying to remember, what was the kid's name again? Essen. And then he blurts out that he's never, ever seen her make a face like that before. He leans in close and whispers, "Don't worry, I'm not planning to do anything to him right now." He starts lecturing everyone, saying that if you're high status, you've got to carry yourself with real dignity, because even pride has rules, you know, and then he goes on and on. He stormed right up to her and demanded she stop running around with trash adventurers, because it makes all the high-ranked ones look bad. Wellness leans in close and tells Polaris this. How she acts from here on out will decide the fate of that kid and Polaris. She clenches her teeth and Wellness laughs it off, telling her they should probably call a truce on the trash talk for today. Polaris turns and starts walking off in silence, but Wellness blurts out behind her, insisting she has to think it through. He reminds her that his door is always open, and she whips her head back with pure disgust blazing across her face. Next, the whole city glows in a bright afternoon, streets and rooftops blazing under the sun. As things are heating up at the Junior Adventure Guild, everyone's scrambling to leave, and that includes everyone too, including Essen. Keeps flicking his eyes to the board, hunting for his name, and sure enough, he's sitting at rank 65,000. He pumps his fist like a champion, buzzing with pure hype for the jump, especially because he still remembers getting stuck at 85,000 last time. Then, surprise, this latest expedition shot his standing way up. Even so, he can't shake the weird feeling of being happy, because that rank up only happened after that wild monster went on a rampage. Alulu clocks Essen strolling through the guild, yells his name, and he skids to a stop, then waves back with a grin as she tells him it's been forever since she last saw him, then officially swings open the office doors and welcomes him back. She already read the church's report, and that recent incident is straight up a nightmare she can't shake. Essen just bursts into laughter and acts totally unfazed, brushing it off like it was no big deal and claiming he barely lifted a finger since he only happened to be there. But Alulu snaps back at him, calls him a liar to his face, and slaps down the official report, published right after his massive monster brawl. Essen's totally stunned she spilled all that detail, but she shrugs it off like, "That's my job, especially since it's him who's always the one causing the trouble." So he flashes her a smile and tells her he truly appreciates the help, even though he never expected to be showered with this much attention. Alulu's eyes go wide, she panics, flails her hands, and turns bright red as she blurts that she's definitely not stalking him or doing anything crazy, and that's when it hits. And he tells her, "I get it." And since he's still nobody in the grand scheme, it hits different to know she's actually thinking about him. Realizing it's straight up insane to get this much backing in a city packed with thousands of other adventurers. Essen just stands there grinning, thinking, Lady Alulu is the real deal, an absolute top-tier professional, and then. But Alulu's completely rattled. She blurts out that it's her job, like being a low-rank guild employee is all the excuse she needs, insisting she doesn't have the spare time to go out of her way and cheer for specific adventurers like him. Essen asks if she's really mad about something, and she fires back instantly. She's absolutely not angry. She goes a little quiet, eyes dropping to her papers, and admits, honestly, that she's just relieved he came back whole, and Essen shoots her a gentle look and lets her know straight up that he's listening every word. Alulu snaps her energy back into place, flashes a dazzling smile, and tells him guard up, keep grinding, because then, right after that last incident, she spills some nasty rumors. Apparently weird gadgets have started popping up in the lower districts. Essen admits the security around here is a mess, tells her to stay on guard too, and she's grateful right away. Until she suddenly dips her head and hides her face, fumbling out that she needs to change the subject. Alulu grins so hard her cheeks ache, then whips out a notebook packed with the massive dungeon summary she hand-built, like she's about to show you the biggest secret of the world. Essen can't believe it. She made this by hand just for him, and she admits she even picked the spots to match his skill level perfectly. Essen is absolutely fired up. She turns to thank her for every ounce of effort she poured into that guide. The top choice is a place called House and Valley, Basically, a wild maze of jagged cliffs and roaring rivers that make it feel like it's built to swallow you whole. Facing the toughest challenge Essen has ever met, he tightens his resolve, because he has to charge straight into it. Staring at the monsters swarming through the sky, he finally gets it. Most adventurers wouldn't last a second in a place like this, not with they. Amid a wild maze of giant stone pillars stacked everywhere, twisting through the crazy terrain like a monster's playground, Essen pushes his way through the rocks, grinning, sure his new gift will let him crush whatever hits next. Then boom, a giant bird monster dives out of the sky and snatches someone mid-scream, begging not to be eaten. Turns out it's a girl with a wild look in her eyes. She's screaming that she's gonna eat someone up. Essen spots a bunch of adventurers out in the distance, and in an instant, dread hits as he fears an attack is about to go down. The second the wild bird girl gets ripped from the ground and yanked into the sky, she screams non-stop the entire way. Essen spots the monster and realizes it's a valley falcon, and he refuses to freeze there because he has to rush in and save her. But the second he tries to move, sickness hits him out of nowhere and he clutches his head, writhing in pure agony. He realizes his new eyes still feel unreal, so he clenches his teeth and turns the power off. When he finally looks back up, the bird is already miles ahead, and the shock hits him like a punch. Meanwhile, the girl goes totally wild, screaming that it's insanely cool she's finally soaring through the air. Because the birds haven't snatched her up and eaten her yet, she's certain they're hauling her back to their nest, just to feed later. But then she glances down and there's something darting beneath her, moving fast as lightning. Essen grits his teeth, plows through the pain, and charges forward yelling that he's coming to save her. Essen bolted forward, freaked out to the bone after a monster talked to him, while the wild bird girl spiraled into full-blown panic. And he stays cool on purpose because he already scanned the whole area with his powers. There's even a deep river right below, ready to snatch them from their fall. He crams every last ounce of strength into one final, earth-shaking move and screams that he's not finished yet. He yells for his wing skill to ignite, and then he swings a huge arc of energy through the air like a cannon blast. The hit lands dead on the giant bird's leg, and the second it connects, the whole thing jerks and quakes, leaving the girl too stunned to even understand what just happened. Essence roars as he slashes with his razor-sharp claw, tearing straight through the monster bird, and it shrieks right as the girl. She loses her balance and drops into a freefall toward the canyon floor, screaming at the top of her lungs. She jerks her head up in pure shock as the bird's claw rips apart, and a brutal spray of blood bursts across everything. Right then, a system notification blasted onto his screen. He'd won the Falcon's silver wings. Essen spots it, and the moment it hits, she knows. It's go time. Both of them vanish in a blinding flash as they drop out of sight. As Essen and the world crash downward, he flails forward, screaming for the girl to grab his hand, because if she doesn't, he'll lose the chance to save her. She snaps back with a scream and thrusts her hand forward, just barely misses him as they plunge through the air. Then they finally lock hands tight, while giant bird feathers swirl down all around them like a storm. The wing skill bursts to life and Essen clamps onto her for balance. Then she soars through the canyon with those massive white wings stretched wide like a storm of feathers. Just as the ground surges up out of nowhere, someone thinks, "I caught it right on time," but they crash straight into the river with a thunderous splash, and Essen straight up admits they didn't slow down in time. The canyon falls silent for a heartbeat as the two of them drift in the water, cradled by towering rocks on every side. Essen blurted out an apology for the brutal landing while staring at his shredded clothes. Then the girl just froze him with a look like, "Hello, you literally saved us." He flashes her a huge, relieved grin, blurts out whether she's hurt anywhere from that fall, and you can see he's more shaken for her than for himself, and he yanks her hand back into his, insisting they've got something huge to handle right now. That girl from the canyon is absolutely losing it after what she just saw. She's screaming at Essen to tell her what that form was, and to confirm if he's even human. She barrels right up to him, eyes blazing, and demands to know if this is some special gift, because those monster parts literally sprouted out of him. Then she's so pumped she practically begs him to do it again. Essen just freezes there, totally stunned, like his brain can't catch up to how suddenly she's gone all warm and friendly. She bursts into laughter, rubs her head, and apologizes for going a little too overexcited, while Essen just slumps there looking completely wiped out from the whole ordeal. With a huge, confident grin, she finally declares, "I'm Ryuka," and the scary truth hits. She looks nothing like the person who attacked him. She suddenly realizes, wait, she still hasn't properly thanked him, so she pauses, takes a breath, and starts figuring out what she should do next. Essen blurts out his name, and she instantly screams out a massive, overflowing thank you like her heart can't hold it in. But he stares at her, utterly confused, as she snaps her jacket back on, and asks if she's honestly not scared of him at all. Essen explains that her reaction is totally different from everyone else's, because most people would freak out and distrust anyone who looks like a monster, even if they just saved them. Ruka stared him down and said straight up that monster types are locked to specific dungeons forever. Those barriers keep them trapped in their own territory. Ryuka jabs a finger upward, eyes lighting up as she pieces it together. His weird transformation might not be a curse at all, but a rare gift ability. Essen nods as they stand right in the canyon, and she even admits there's still a chance he's nothing more than a brand new monster type they've never seen before. Her eyes lock in, her expression turns razor sharp, and she starts to speak like something huge is about to break loose. Suddenly, she snaps, turning beet red, squealing at the top of her lungs that she absolutely loves monsters. Essen looks absolutely terrified as she snaps back that even if he were *1, it wouldn't change a thing for her. He just stares at her, stunned beyond belief, because when she says she'd want to get even closer to a humanoid monster like him, he can't even process it. She starts losing it, raving about how insanely cool they are, craving every detail of how their bodies are built for hunting, and swearing their whole look is just straight up irresistible. She even admits she let him catch her earlier on purpose. She just wanted a closer look at his form, and she didn't care what happened next. Essen tries to slip away and pretend she doesn't care, but she just won't stop. She keeps falling in right behind her, pleading for him to shift again, just so she could catch sight of those wings and fangs one last time. Ruka keeps pressing him again and again until the boy finally cracks and admits he's not really into showing off his secret gift. But she barrels right up to him, fires off, "Are you being shy?" and makes it clear she already saw the form. He finally cracks and says, "Fine," and that lights her up like a firework. She can't wait to see it again. The boy shuts out everything else, zeroing in on his target as he shouts the power of the silver wings and then wham, those huge feathered wings burst open wide and Ruka froze, staring in total awe. Stars shine in her eyes, and she blurts out that it's the coolest thing she's ever seen. Even as the boy glances back over his shoulder, he blurts out, "So this is really what you wanted, huh?" Ruka doesn't even wait for a response. She lunges straight in, wraps the feathers in her arms, and yells that they feel just like the real thing. She starts yanking and squeezing them so brutally that he blurts out a panicked yelp, but she keeps rubbing her face into them, gushing that their way feels softer and way darker than she ever thought it would. The boy blasts out a furious shout as Ruka keeps messing with the feathers, and she just shrugs, complaining they don't have a beastly stink. He finally snaps and yells at her to stop, but she keeps bouncing around him like a kid, leaving him nowhere to breathe. His grip won't hold, those wings splinter apart into loose feathers, and the boy hits the ground gasping, completely wiped out. He locks eyes with her and declares the show is over, exactly the gut punch Ruka didn't want to hear, and then he admits it freaks him out, because when she licks those wings, he feels everything through them, and her touch it feels way too weird for him. Ryuka slumps over, looking crushed, mumbling that they weren't gonna break or anything, but then the boy spirals harder, blurting that her chest pressed against his is making him feel all jittery and restless. Ruka finally snaps and gives in. She tells him she'll stop if he really can't stand it, only to watch the boy feel utterly pathetic over how hard he reacted. The boy struggles to fix his gear, and Ruka just stares him down, her face sharpening into something serious as she asks straight up if Essen is really just some low-rank adventurer, and the boy freezes, totally baffled, until she shrugs and tells him the truth. His clothes are still a complete disaster. The boy blurts out that once adventurers climb the ranks, they switch to gear forged from monster parts, gear that can literally heal itself. And as he glances at his ripped clothes, he realizes exactly how brutal the fight was. And Ruka drops a bombshell. She's weirdly sharp when it comes to top-tier gear, and he blurts out, "Wait, are you secretly an elite adventurer too?" But Ruka just shrugs it off, laughs, and tells him he couldn't be more wrong. Then she closes her eyes, smiles like she's proud, and says her real job isn't what he thinks. she's a craftsman. She raises a finger, locks eyes with him, and then drops a massive offer that makes everything shift. Telling him she's been cooking up brand new gear for him herself while they stand in front of this massive mechanical fortress, giant legs and all that towers over them like a beast. And the workshop's scale is straight up insane, towering over everyone, wrapped in metal plating with odd pipes snaking everywhere. Ruka flicks her tongue out with a grin, basically telling him, "This is my way of saying thanks for saving her life and for letting her witness his special power." She flings her arms wide and yells, "Tada!" the second they hit the front door, and just like that she proudly unveils him to her workshop. He leaves the boy totally stunned. He jerks his head up at that giant structure, eyes wide like he can barely process what he's seeing, and he realizes he never would have guessed this kind of place was sitting right on the edge of the city. Even though it's his first time stepping into a workshop, the boy can't believe how totally over the top this place is, like it's going way too far for. Ruka bursts into laughter, joking that it's less a shop and more a monster, while the boy just slumps there, dead tired, wondering why it has legs and staring at it like it's a giant spider. As they walk, Ruka tells him the truth. She didn't just find this place, she built it with her gift, her so-called magic engineering workshop. The boy trots after her up the stairs, blurting out that getting a craftsman something gift-worthy like that is honestly pretty awesome. Ryuko flicks her finger at him and tells him he's got it all wrong about how her power actually works. She tells you the truth, most craftsmen are nothing special at all, just regular blacksmiths and cooks, making do with the simplest jobs. Her power isn't just special, it's a rare gift built for top-tier tech and expert-level skills. She flashes him a huge smile and says her gift steals the spotlight, just like his does among the rest. The boy grins back and shoots, "So does that mean I've got a special one too?" Ruka bursts into laughter and says she loves the sound of it, then heads straight for the door to show him what's inside. Ruka urges the boy to hurry inside, and the moment he steps into the workshop, his eyes go wide at the massive furnace and every piece of gear stacked around him. Ryuka strides straight to the back of the room where the fire's roaring, slipping right past her tools like she owns the place. That boy's eyes lock onto a mountain of books and a messy pile of monster parts crammed in the corner, and he can't help but be blown away. Staring at the scattered hammers and tools, he tells Ruka she's not just messing around, she actually looks like the real deal, a pro craftsman. Ruka shrugs like it's no big deal and says she still has some prep work to handle, so he should go ahead and roam around, grabbing whatever he wants. The boy tells her, "I've got it," flashes a quick grin, and then dives into exploring the room. He spots a terrifying monster jaw on one of the work tables, packed with rows of razor-sharp teeth. The boy leans in for a closer look, his mind buzzing. Could this be some rare mid-tier treasure? And the second he reaches out, his jaw snaps shut on his hand without warning and he erupts into a scream of pure pain. Then Ruka shrugs like it's obvious and tells him he shouldn't touch things so carelessly. And as the boy panics and screams that his fingers are about to be bitten off, Ruka just stands there, laughing like it's the funniest thing in the world. The boy's finger is finally wrapped in thick, heavy bandages, sealing the bleeding tight. Ruka shrugs and says undead monster materials always act that way, but the boy just stays there sobbing, insisting she should have warned him way sooner. She doesn't even feel guilty. She snaps back that he's the one who went and touched it first, even though she only ever gave him permission to look around. The boy fought back, insisting he couldn't possibly have known, because that thing was basically a full-blown trap. Suddenly, Ryuka's eyes flare with an idea, and she blurts out that she just came up with something seriously amazing. She bolts into action, snapping that she's drawing up a brand new plan for his equipment, right this second. She snaps her notebook open and dives in, ready to sketch the new gear in one furious burst. Ryuka shoots her eyes over, looks oddly serious and blurts that it's getting late, so they can't afford to waste a second. She flashes a massive grin, swings a measuring tape up in front of him and tells him straight up that if she's making his gear, he better strip. She needs his sizes. The boy just freezes on the spot, staring with a blank, stunned face after she dares him to do what she asked. Ruka yanks his clothes off like he can't wait a second, yelling that they've got to hurry, because night is creeping in fast. The boy snaps, telling her she can't just strip people, but she shrugs and insists she only wants to know why he's acting so painfully shy. He tries to blurt out that he just wasn't ready for all of this, but Ryuka cuts him off like it's nothing. she says she's seen plenty of naked guys before. As the argument spirals, a stranger in white boots marches up to the workshop. A thunderous knock slams into the door, and both of them jump like they've just been caught in a lie. From the other side, a voice bursts through the air, calling out, "Ryuka, are you there?" The door swings open and there's Polaris right on the spot, demanding her sword be fixed, no delay. She cuts herself off mid-sentence, eyes wide, staring at the shirtless boy like she just saw the impossible. The boy stares in disbelief and blurts her name at the top of his lungs, while Ruka casually waves like nothing at all is happening. He's completely unraveling, blazing questions flying out of him like, why is the top-ranked ice princess even here? The workshop goes dead silent as Polaris looms over the boy, arms crossed, staring him down like she's daring him to blink. The boy slumps on a wooden stool, shirtless and drenched in sweat, staring like he's trapped in the middle of a full-blown nightmare. Polaris takes one sharp second to register what's in front of her, her eyes snapping onto him as he scrambles for the words he can't seem to find. He darts a nervous grin at Polaris and blurts that it's been ages since they last saw each other. But Polaris isn't buying the friendly vibe at all. She gives him a sharp, icy look and coldly says she guesses that's true. He forces a laugh, acting completely stunned that they'd actually collide in a place like this. Polaris squints, her stare sharpening to a blade as she snaps out a cold, icy reply and then boom, the room's heat vanishes fast as freezing air whips in and swirls around her feet. The boy starts shivering as the air bites cold, right when Polaris asks if she's really interrupting something between him and Ryuka. She stares at him with a terrifying, shadowy expression and flat-out tells him to stop pretending. He doesn't need to cover it up anymore. Polaris sizes the boy up from head to toe and straight up says his condition makes it painfully clear what's been going on. She says he's having the time of his life, but panic hits him hard. He screams that she's completely wrong. Ryuka was the one who ripped off his clothes. He tries to claw his way out of the hole, blurting that he literally just met Ryuka earlier today, but that just cranks up Polaris's suspicion even more. She keeps repeating that he's suddenly hanging out at a girl's house he literally just met. The boy snaps the second it clicks too late, because his explanation somehow makes everything sound way worse than it really is. So he starts flailing his hands like a maniac, screaming that it's all just one massive misunderstanding. Polaris doesn't buy it for a second because the way he's got all that free time screams that an adventurer should be busy, right? He fires back right away, insisting she's wrong and letting her know he's been staying busy the whole time. The boy shoots back that he only stripped his shirt because they had to measure him, insisting nothing sketchy is going on since he's got no time to mess around with girls. And just like that, Polaris flashes a tiny smile and tells him she's been messing with him the whole time. Polaris confesses she only played with him because after all this time, seeing his face again sparked the urge to tease him, just a little. The boy snaps at her that her teasing isn't funny, it's terrifying, while Polaris just blurts out a quick apology and moves on. She leans in and says she's known Ryuka forever and she's got her all figured out. She knows exactly what kind of girl she is. And that's when the boy finally clicks. Ryuka has to be behind every piece of Polaris' top-tier high-end gear. Polaris makes it crystal clear that's exactly what's going on, explaining that Ryuka's the kind of legend even elite adventurers brag about, an all-star master craftsman who truly knows her stuff. The boy is absolutely stunned by the news, and Polaris admits she's the one who didn't expect to find him just hanging out there. Then Ruka's voice rings out from the other room. She calls Polaris, apologizing for the brutal wait. And she bursts in with a massive sword, grinning as she tells her the maintenance is finally done. Polaris shoots back a quick thanks, but Ruka just shrugs it off, like there was nothing major to fix in the first place. Ruka says Polaris always comes in clutch, and the girl grins. She just adjusted the spearhead so the magic would run through it even smoother. And Ruka grins at Polaris, straight up bragging that she really is taking amazing care of every single piece of her equipment. As Polaris tests the power in her own palm, she keeps her cool and asks Ryuka straight up if he truly believes that. So Polaris says it's only because Ruka's cranking out such high-quality stuff. Then Ruka's embarrassment hits and she blurts, "Stop it." Leaving the boy staring in disbelief, he can't stop thinking about how a top ranker calls her his master. then he wonders if someone that strong would really bother crafting gear for him. Ryuka snaps to attention, realizes she's been ghosting him, and rushes to apologize to Essen for dragging his request along for way too long. But Essen just smirks and tells her it's totally fine, since she's doing him a favor anyway. Ryuka snatches up her tools on the spot and tells him, "I'm finishing your stuff right now, like this second." Polaris just stands there with her arms crossed, quietly watching them team up. Ryuka slips right behind the boy, snaps into action, and starts measuring and tweaking his back piece by piece. Ryuka jots down a few final notes on paper, then snaps up and interrupts, changing the subject on the spot. She shoots them a look and demands to know, "Do the two of you really know each other?" The boy blurts out yes, and Polaris nods along, but she holds back a little like her excitement's wearing armor. As she pours herself a drink, Polaris shrugs and says it's not fate. It's just that they both happen to grow up in the same hometown, which Ryuka finds totally fascinating because you don't come across something like that every single day. She calls out the fact that they're both lone adventurers now, then presses her luck. "Why aren't you two teaming up?" Because they're from the same place, so it makes her wonder if something's really going on, like they just don't get along. The boy chuckles it off with an awkward shrug, admitting they really did try to throw a party back when they first started out. But Polaris takes a sip of her drink and tells her that the gap in their skills shows up instantly. With a stern stare, she spills the truth. Essen wasn't just involved, he was the one who decided to blow up the party and end it, leaving the boy completely rattled as he scrambles to apologize for what happened back then. The boy forces a shaky smile like he's finally confessing, "Yeah, I knew all along I was just holding her back." Ryuka nods like, "I get you," because Polaris didn't just rise to power, she exploded to the top on a whole other level. She breaks it down. Polaris just appeared out of nowhere, blasted straight into the top and slammed into the 9th spot. 1 year, just one like, that's insane because most people never even crack the top 10,000. Ruka's figureson tried to reject being carried by her friend, convinced it was all about pride, and then. But the boy locks eyes with her and says, "A high rank means nothing if you can't prove it with real skill." Ruka flashes a grin and casually says she loves Essen's vibe, then it hits Polaris like a surprise punch, making Ruka tease them even harder while the boy completely snaps, screaming that she's got the wrong idea about them. Ruka jumped back into action, grabbed a quill and carved a mark on his hand, promising she'd forge gear that finally matches his resolve. Polaris keeps his eyes locked on them, stunned and confused. Why would a top-tier crafter go to that extreme for someone like him? Ryuka flashes a grin and licks her lip, telling him making this gear is her way of saying thanks for saving her in the dungeon. Polaris shuts her eyes and finally gets it. She can't believe the crapper's been pouring all this effort into something for a reason. Ryuka looks back and swears this moment feels exactly like their very first meeting, when everything was chaos and people were yelling for help. Polaris makes a brutal point about how Ryuka even hauled Essen into her mess. Then the crafter snaps, loses control, and starts apologizing nonstop for every bit of trouble. The boy just flashes a confident thumbs up, grinning like he already knows Essen is about to get way stronger from here on out, and there's zero doubt. Polaris locks eyes with him for a heartbeat, then gives a quiet nod and agrees. She smiles to herself, practically buzzing with anticipation, because if he stays weak, then her life turns dull fast. A boy's eyes turn deadly serious and he swears to her, no doubt at all, that he'll catch up to where she's headed. Ryuka and Polaris lock eyes, and in that split-second silence you can practically feel the weight of his resolve pressing down on them. Until Polaris finally calls it time to head home. Then Ryuka and the boy stand there waving, watching her vanish into the street. The door clicks open, a voice calls out Ryuka, and Wellness just barges right in like it owns the place. He flashes a smug grin at Polaris, waves off her concerns with a "cut me some slack," and asks why she's back out in that dead-quiet remote spot again. Polaris snaps, screaming his name at the top of her lungs and accusing him of tailing her all the way there. The boy just freezes, totally lost, as Polaris starts breaking into a cold sweat from the pressure. A chill creeps into Wellness's eyes, and Polaris can't shake the fear that his sudden arrival isn't just bad timing. It feels like a coincidence with teeth. She glares at him and spits his name like it's a curse. The boy tries to make sense of it all and blurts out whether this guy is someone Polaris knows, right as Wellness finally snaps to him standing there. Suddenly, Wellness pops in, clamps his nose and pulls a disgusted face like the air just reeked with something hideously gross. He strides straight up to the kid, sizing him up with ice-cold eyes that say, plain and simple, he thinks the boy is beneath him. The kid finally cracks, locks eyes with the guy, and demands to know what the hell is his problem. Wellness just stands there smirking behind his hand, laughing like he's hiding some massive secret. He squares up to the kid, glaring like pure disgust, and demands to know how someone this pathetic is even allowed in a place like this. The boy gets hit by the insult out of nowhere, stares at the guy in shock and blurts, "What's your problem?" Polaris has finally snapped and tells Wellness to knock it off, but he can only manage a heavy, bored-flat sigh. He tells Polaris that slumming around with a ratty kid like him is beneath her, and it's wrecking her whole image. Wellness whips his focus to Ruka, then blurts out some unwanted advice, like she needs to start picking the right customers, no excuses. He keeps pushing, telling her straight up that letting a kid like that into her life will smash her reputation to pieces. Ruka refuses to swallow it. She snaps back that she's got her guest list under control and this is her place, so she'll welcome whoever she damn well pleases. She swears right down to the last detail that she never even invited him over in the first place, not once, not ever. Well, Wellness isn't even fazed by the rejection. He just grins like it's nothing, says he'll be out soon anyway because he only came for Polaris. The boy refuses to swallow those insults. He yells at Wellness, demanding they wait up. He storms right back up and calls out his rudeness, demanding, "Who do you think you are?" Wellness just shoots him a look that screams pity like, "Kid, you don't even know how to talk to your superiors, and a low-level rat like you has no business acting this bold." He smirks like the kids aren't to blame at all, because, hey, they're ignorant, living in worlds so different they might as well be galaxies apart. He plants a hand on his chest and starts flexing, ranked 73, a gifted genius, until suddenly he bursts into this massive laugh and shouts that he's actually Polaris' boyfriend, leaving Ryuka and everyone else totally stunned. Polaris just stands there, frozen with a blank stare. She can't even wrap her mind around what he said. The boy's jaw drops. He gapes at the guy like reality just flipped upside down. Panic explodes in him. He blurts, "What's happening?" Then whips around to Polaris, desperate to find out if any of this is really true. Polaris is drenched in sweat, just staring at the Wellness stuff, already wondering what kind of game he's really being set up for. Polaris is completely swamped, hair falling over her eyes as she scrambles to think, because she realizes that if she fights the story, things with that boy are about to explode into total mess. No. Wellness just hums along, strutting off like he owns the whole world while the boy freezes in total silence. Polaris is left behind, looking wrecked as she fights to scrape together even a single word. With a shaky breath, she watches the boy stand there looking totally crushed, then finally squeezes out the truth. Everything Wellness told him is real. The boy just mutters, "I get it," tries to play it cool and tells her they're not kids anymore, like he can casually claim this is normal while he's clearly crumbling inside. Polaris is literally trembling with her hand clamped over her face, barely keeping it together while Wellness just struts around like she owns the sky, staring up at it. He fiddles with his collar like a full-on drama queen, then deadpans that this is just how things are. Wellness makes the kid get it once he finally understands he's never getting his ugly face back near them again. Then Wellness jerks Polaris along and the boy gets left choking on dust. That boy's eyes scream heartbreak like someone yanked his heart clean out of his chest, but Wellness doesn't flinch. He calls Polaris out anyway, telling her it's time to head home. A lone signpost just sits there in the middle of a quiet field, and as time grinds on, and in the dead of night, a soft little chuckle slices through the silence. Then wham, someone erupts into this massive laugh that echoes all over the place. Polaris stares at the ground and asks Wellness if he's really happy with how everything turned out, but Wellness snaps back, calling him immature and roasting his awful taste. Wellness doesn't even blink, she just shrugs and says, "Of course he's happy," then leans in and asks if she saw the kid's pathetic face. He flashes a seriously creepy grin and tells her he saw something special today. Polaris tells him straight up that Essen wouldn't dare wreck Wellness, Then Essen just laughs it off like he's hearing the funniest joke in the world. He leans in with a smug grin and quips, "So you're not gonna break, but man, you sure look like you're hurting." Polaris' eyes narrowed as she clocked the truth. This disaster didn't just happen by accident, and the guy who caused it is standing there, practically glowing with pride. She stalks off, mumbling that she's a complete loser for ever buying into that stupid lie. She tells him, "Normally I'd just toss you out right now, but I'm not taking the blame for you attacking another adventurer." With pure hatred burning in her eyes, she snaps that there's zero chance she'll throw away her gift over some nobody like him. She fires off one final warning and tells him, straight up, never ever underestimate Essen. Polaris locks eyes with Wellness and ignites him with pure fire, insisting Essen will climb all the way to the top on her own, no excuses. She's dead serious because that promise is the one they made to each other. And she barrels right into his space, staring him down and swearing she'll grab all that trashy energy he's throwing out and hurl it straight back at him. Wellness doesn't even look bothered. He just stands there with that annoying little smirk. He breaks into real laughter, praising her kid's trust as straight-up incredible, then blurts out how he's not even sure the guy has what it takes to crawl back onto his feet. Just as he turns to leave, he snaps back to her. No matter what, even if that kid somehow gets back up again. It won't matter, because when he's there, he'll smash him back into the dirt like he's nothing but a bug. At last, the sun slips behind the city, and the whole place plunges into cold, hushed shadow. People are hauling out of the streets and sprinting for home, and with everyone gone, the alleys swallow the night dark and silent. Meanwhile, the boy finally hauls himself to his room, stumbles up the stairs, and shoves the door open like he can't take another step. He doesn't even bother taking his gear off, he just faceplants onto the bed, utterly shattered by everything that just happened. The boy just freezes, staring into nothing because everything Wellness tells him hits like a punch, and he can't shake a single word from his head. Staring at the rumor that Polaris already has a lover, he swears it should be simple. But it's gnawing at him, and he can't even finish his thought because he's going to burst. She snaps to it. She's already the top-ranked adventurer, rolling with her own gear and a partner who can actually trade blows and keep up with her in a fight. He can't stop asking himself why she'd ever wait for a guy like him, when she's already got a whole crew of teammates who actually pull their weight. So he can't shake the question, does she stay loyal to an ancient promise or does she just feel bad for him? He still remembers the days when she truly needed him by her side, back when he mattered to her. Then the story snaps back to their childhood, night air hanging heavy outside a quiet house, and inside that dark room a little girl is sobbing like her heart is breaking. Little Polaris shrinks into the corner, until a voice from the window calls her name. It's him, the boy, saying it's really him, screaming that they've gotta bolt out of there right now. She can barely process that he showed up, but he snaps at her that she can't stay with a violent father like that a day longer, and he's set on getting her out for good. Polaris is in full panic, begging where they could even go, and the boy fires back that anywhere beats staying here. Her father catches them and erupts, roaring that he wants to know what they think they're doing, while the boy frantically tries to yank her out of trouble. The man snaps completely, screaming that they ruined his house. Then he swings a bottle straight over the boy's head, and Polaris can only scream as the boy digs in, guarding her with his whole body. He takes a brutal punch straight to the face, still refusing to move. Still, they slip away, and he vows to her, "Wherever we run, I'll be the one who protects you." While they're catching their breath, the boy leans in and asks, "Do you still remember that dream I told you about?" And that question kicks everything forward, leading to... He hoisted her on his back, grinned about how he'd be an adventurer at 10, and swore they'd forge the greatest duo the world had ever seen. Time barrels forward and Polaris finally learns her gift's name, Silver World, and once it clicks, ice powers surge through her as she can control it. The boy goes wild, grinning like crazy, totally hyped, thinking he's expecting her to be insanely strong too, until she casually tears through the landscape with a gigantic ice attack and he's left completely speechless. Eventually, she grabs the ladder and starts climbing, buzzing with excitement as she proudly shows him that her ranking has surged again. Polaris tells S that where she stands still isn't good enough. She keeps scaling higher and admits the truth. Her real target is to smash into rank number 1. She whips her head back, beams at him, and calls out Essen, Then the moment turns dark because right after that, then the boy jolts awake in bed, staring at the ceiling like his brain just rebooted, eyes wide, completely out of it as he sits up. Morning sunlight slammed into his eyes and he just sat on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands, like the day had already punched him in the face. He hammers into himself that this looks grim, and the whole dream feels so pathetic and lame it makes him cringe. After calling that the worst way to wake up, he storms outside and heads straight for the stone well in the courtyard. He dashes freezing water onto his face, trying to snap out of that funk before it swallows him whole. He crouched by the bucket while the other guys laughed and loitered in the background. Still, he was trapped in his own head. Water cascades off his hair as he can't stop thinking, why does Polaris even care about him anymore? Realizing she's the kind of person who won't dare break a promise, he decides that's the whole reason, nothing more, just that. The boy glares into the water, replaying one desperate thought: he has to apologize to Ryuka like, right now. He can't even remember what happened, but he's almost certain he just turned and vanished without a word, and that's what makes it worse. It makes him feel like a total jerk for how rude he's being. Then he stares out over the hills, toward where she's staying in, and spots Ruka posted by her campfire, calm as ever, patiently waiting while her clothes dry on a line right beside her. The moment she spots him striding up, her whole face brightens and she grins, saying he finally made it. So the boy drops his head right away and blurts out an apology for vanishing on her yesterday, but she just laughs it off and tells him he doesn't need to worry. She admits she was honestly worried because right before he left, he looked completely out of it, and it made her feel like something was seriously wrong. He keeps apologizing and the guilt only gets heavier, so Ruka's expression flickers with confusion when he brings up Essen. But she darts right past it, clasping her hands as she tells him with real relief that she's just happy he actually returned. She brings up the gear he mentioned yesterday, tells him it's already done, and orders him to put it on right now so she can see exactly how it looks. The boy snaps, demanding how on earth she could pull it off so fast, when he'd only floated the idea to her yesterday. Ryuka bursts out laughing and says once she got going, she was having so much fun she couldn't stop, while the boy just freezes, totally stunned that someone could work that fast. He can't stop grinning because Ryuka isn't just special, he's on a whole other level compared to anyone he's ever met. She flicks her hand toward the table and tells him, "It's all set, every piece is ready and waiting for you to try it on." He wastes zero time, slaps the armor pieces into place with rapid clicks, and feels the premium gear lock on like it was made for him. The moment he's finally geared up, he shoots Ryuko a look and asks if he really hooked everything on the right way. She spots the new headband and tells him she made it just for him, built to shield his head because that's where most monsters love to swing their attacks. The rest of the suit is engineered for pure speed, light monster fibers wrapped around him, with magic-soaked plates guarding every vital spot so he stays safe without losing a single ounce of momentum. But the coolest part, that armor has shape memory magic. If it gets busted in a fight, it just repairs itself right then and there. Even with middle-tier materials, she grins and tells him, this suit is built to take a beating tough enough to survive the deadliest high-rank dungeons. The boy starts bouncing in his brand new gear, screaming that it feels light and ridiculously awesome, while Ruka can't help grinning like she just nailed the perfect masterpiece. Ryuka says, next, let's test the gear self-repair feature, and the boy immediately lights up. He's all in to see it work. She pauses just a beat to soak it in, then tells him his wings look incredible in the new suit, while he's stuck standing there like he's still processing it. The armor's fabric ripples, starts to split apart, and then, right as the self-repair magic kicks in, the damage fights to disappear and right when the boy's jaw hits the floor, he screams that the repair function is actually working, right there in front of him. He leans in, spots the details, and realizes she built the whole thing out of C-rank materials, which makes his panic spike and he blurts out, wait, are these high-end suits crazy expensive? Ruka flashes him a huge grin and tells him to chill, because she's treating it like a straight-up investment in his future. But she makes it crystal clear, next time she's going to come collecting, so he'd better level up and finally start bringing home real money. The boy nods, but his voice drops as he stares off, realizing what it really means to get stronger, and that thought makes him pause, making Ruka can't shake this fear. Did she accidentally kill the hype by taking the future way too seriously? Ryuka caught the boy completely off guard, firing a wild question. Did Essen really have a thing for Polaris? While they're camped by the fire, she won't let the conversation die. She keeps steering it back to one thing: how Essen acted around her, demanding right to his face whether he honestly thinks Essen felt that kind of way about her. The boy goes silent, turns his eyes aside, and admits, when he really lets himself think, that yeah, maybe it was true after all. He leans in and asks if she really caught those vibes, and Ruka swears to him she felt it for sure. When someone's that obviously depressed and straight up admitting it, you can't miss it. Anyone would clock it immediately. The boy flashes a shaky little smile and admits he gets what she's saying, like she just caught him slipping and he can't deny it. He drops down beside the fire, looking utterly spent by that crushing topic. So Ruka tells him, if you need to blow off steam, just come talk to me anytime. She says that in her line of work, she's seen people hit their breaking point and walk away from the adventure life for good. Ruka drops her gaze and admits that even the strongest hearts can't always bounce back after losing a friend. She tells you some people get tossed aside by their own party even after pouring in amazing gifts, while others just reach their breaking point and finally throw in the towel. But then she leans in and tells the boy she truly believes that every single person out here is tough, strong in body, and even stronger in heart. She flat out says that anyone willing to risk their life fighting monsters has to be strong enough to stare their fears down and not blink. Even the toughest things crack under pressure, and she proves it by flicking a tiny walnut like it's nothing. Slammed the shell until it cracked wide, sending shards skittering across the ground. Staring him down, she snaps that no matter how tough the outside looks, every single thing has a weak point. Because the real treasure inside is way more fragile than that tough-looking shell. The boy stays silent, eyes glued to the floor as he sizes himself up against that cracked walnut, and it hits him that he's finally been split open too. Ryuka ends it by telling him, keeping it all locked inside won't heal you. When the weight gets heavy, it's totally okay to lean on someone else. The boy curls up on the ground, finally letting it all hit. He whispers, I get it now. He stares up at Ryuka and blurts out that he doesn't even know if what he felt for Polaris was really love, or just something that looked like it. He tells her his urge to protect her crushes everything else, and you can see Ruka freeze in total shock. Looking back, he tells her it's almost wild to believe now, because Polaris was seriously weak before she ever got her gift. He remembers how she lost her mom when they were kids, and how her dad spiraled into a violent drunk from that pain. Things spiraled fast back then. He lays it out. She would just clamp her mouth shut and soak up every punch. But eventually, he snapped. He couldn't watch her suffer anymore, so he grabbed her hand and they both sprinted out of the village, vanishing into the unknown. He drops back down by the fire, tells Ryuka he already knows what comes next from their days as adventurers, but he glances up at the sky and reminds her of the promise they made right there for his kids, that they'd become the best in the world together. Even after she runs off and leaves him in the dust, he finally blurts it out. Every brutal day of hard work is driven by one thing, that ancient promise she made him. The boy flashes back to the day Wellness arrived and swore she was Polaris' lover. Then, right in that moment, he felt every ounce of strength drain out of him and it hits him. He realized that wasn't the real reason he'd been grinding himself into the ground. The two of them huddle in the quiet night, eyes locked on the flickering fire like it's telling secrets. Ruka shatters the silence and tells him she knew it all along. Straight up, she calls it out. What he's feeling isn't anything else, it's pure jealousy. The boy huffs out a miserable sigh, leans back and mutters that he's pathetic, while Ruka just grins, watching him like it's the funniest thing in the world. So she bursts into laughter and tells him, straight up, that it's honestly no big deal at all. He still won't swallow that excuse, insisting it's not okay to find out their childhood promise was just a cover for these pathetic feelings. Ruka locks eyes with him and flat out tells him she doesn't believe that for a second. She tells him, if you're self-aware enough to say those ugly feelings out loud, you'll be okay. No question. The boy still looks shaky, then blurts out, are you sure this is okay? Because he's terrified he'll run out of reasons to keep pushing forward. Ruka cuts him off and tells him plain as day he doesn't have to change a single feeling, and the boy just stares back, completely lost, like he can't figure out where she's taking this. She jabs a finger at him and snaps that he doesn't even know Polaris' side of the story yet, so he better stop acting like some selfish jerk who just kidnapped her. And the boy stares at the ground, muttering, that's a brutal way to describe me, but Ruka doesn't even slow down. She keeps going, asking if someone that brazen would. So he tells himself forget her, just because he heard she might be taken. Then the boy sinks down, eyes heavy, looking completely wiped out, but wait, then at last he steels himself, clutching her arm, and blurts out the truth. Deep down, he can't bear to let her go. He snaps his gaze upward, sparks blazing in his eyes, and tells her that back then, because he loved her, he managed to save her, and it's because his feelings for her never died that he decides from this moment on, he'll be the one to stand in front of danger and protect her. With Polaris's smiling face flashing in his mind, he spills the truth. He's determined to catch up to her level, so they can finally stand side by side and have real time together as equals. Ruka bursts into cheering, tells him that's the spirit. Then he instantly slumps and spirals, panicking that he's just a nuisance, and Ruka's right there as it all crashes down, causing. Ruka snapped and screamed at him every 5 seconds to stop stepping back, or else, like she was losing her mind. Ryuka flashed a cheeky wink at the boy, then teased, if Polaris drops you and you end up alone, don't sulk, just let me be your lover. His eyes snap wide and he blurts out a shocked shout, utterly blindsided by her sudden, bizarre proposal. She leans in even closer, voice turning razor-sharp, telling him she's more than happy to be the reason he refuses to back down. But then things get seriously weird. She starts hugging herself, zoning out loud and daydreaming she's his lover, picturing being wrapped up in lizard tails or soaring off in falcon wings. She doesn't back down, she's blushing hard as she blurts out that getting choked by a frog's tongue sounds weirdly like a great time. The boy freezes in place, terror blazing across his face as it all clicks, and the moment he finally gets it, he realizes exactly why she's been fixated on him. He clocks that since his summoning powers can feed her monsters on demand, she's convinced she can milk them for all her creepy fantasies, and the fact he can keep summoning more just seals the deal for her. He stumbles backward in full panic, pleads for a break, and yells that he absolutely does not share her weird hobbies. Ruka clears her throat and tells him to set the jokes aside for a second, yet the boy stares at her like he can't tell if she's serious. Seeing him finally snap back to himself, she breaks into a real, warm smile and asks, so, are you okay now? The boy shoots a look her way and thanks Ruka for the talk, and she just shrugs it off with a laugh, saying it's no big deal because seeing a friend sink in sadness never feels good, so she throws jokes like, I'm basically helping you get famous so you'll have to blow a ton of money here and make the boy finally sees she's right, he has to get back on his feet, so he stares into the campfire and nods, his chest tightening as he agrees. A fresh surge of motivation hits him. He tightens his glove, tells her he's giving this adventurer act one more shot, and then Yuka throws him a huge, heart-melting, supportive smile, and you can tell she's over the moon that he's finally acting like himself again, just as he spins to leave, she erupts from behind him, screaming for him to give it everything he's got. He snaps right back into the fight, Ryuka's new gear on his back, he rockets through the air and wipes out monsters like it's nothing at all. Ripping through anything in his way, training and those new upgrades are blasting his power so hard, it's obvious as he moves on. 3 weeks have vanished since he got his new setup, and he hasn't stayed put for a second. And he's been storming every dungeon he can get his hands on, laser-focused on the grind, stacking new skills like trophies until he finally climbs to the very top. He starts flexing the Tenku skill he snagged from the Valley Griffin, letting him literally kick the air to launch himself anywhere, and it totally flips his movement style on its head. And he's even mastered the Wayland Basilisk's evil eye, one stare that turns whatever he locks onto into stone. With these powers in his hands, it's about to go. Yeah, it's crystal clear he's stronger than he's ever been and the pride is loud in his chest. Feeling unstoppable, he turns back to check the boards and he can't stop wondering where he even ranks in the world after all that brutal grinding. Then his name flashes on the screen. And then he realizes Essen has rocketed all the way up to rank 50,553. A massive leap from where he started. And then it hits him, he's only a few spots from cracking into the top 50,000, the moment that finally unlocks the intermediate rank, and he can't help but celebrate. Alulu finally shows up and asks how he's been holding up lately. His face lights up the second he sees her and promises she's right to be confident. especially since he's already cleared out nearly every dungeon she warned him about. He's moving so fast that it's basically. So Alulu tells him that's seriously impressive and asks straight up if he's already hunting for his next dungeon to smash. He admits he is, asks if she's got any good leads, but she shoots him a look and goes, "Dungeon crawling cool." Then flips the script, asking if he'd be up for a completely different kind of job just this once. The boy gapes in shock and blurts out, "Wait, are you talking about a completely different kind of job than your usual?" Ilulu grins and tells him she's got a special request, one that's straight from the guild itself. She lets it slip that it's not widely known, but the guild is slammed with all kinds of missions, way more than just wiping out dungeons, so she tells him this time the reward is going to be massive. And the boy admits it sounds tempting, but you can see the stress written all over his face, and he tells you straight up that his #1 mission right now is to lock in on his rank. Alulu's face hardens into pure warning, and she tells him straight up, a hot streak is the most dangerous time for any fighter. She leans in and tells him dead serious that every adventurer has to step away from the grind now and then, or their mind will slip and their heads won't stay straight. The boy falls silent for a beat and it hits him. She's not dismissing him, she's looking out for him. She gives him a quick wink and laughs that it's not even rough work, so he should grab it like the break he desperately needs from all this chaos. He hits the mark and he leans in with a grin, telling her he's all in for the job. Alulu is absolutely fired up, cheering at the top of her lungs because she finally got him to say yes to the job. She tells him, "I'll get everything ready," and he just nods like he's locked in, watching her leave. The boy freezes for a beat, totally baffled, trying to figure out what kind of prep work she really means. From a balcony above, a bunch of shady dudes lurk in the shadows, watching every second of the chaos unfold. Flashback a few days back to Wellness's massive estate. Someone's on the doorstep demanding the latest news. Wellness is just lounging in his robe, glaring like crazy, and demanding to know if that trash adventurer still hasn't finally quit yet. His subordinate leans in and tells him the guy isn't just showing up, he's more fired up than ever. Which makes Wellness lose his cool. He snaps his tongue and slams his palm hard onto the table. He takes a drink, eyes blazing with pure fed-up rage at how unbearable this guy is, and then So he leans in and tells him that if he wants to break Polaris, the fastest route is simple. Hit the person she loves and watch everything shatter. Wellness decides the mind games aren't landing, so they go straight for the attack, and his subordinate's face goes totally pale at the sudden change in tone. Wellness casually asks if he should just kill the guy, and his subordinate instantly freaks out, screaming that it's gone way too far. His subordinate snaps a warning in his ear: no matter how high he's ranked, he can't hide from the church if he starts killing people. Wellness just looks bored out of his mind, barely glancing at the warning while he lounges in his robe. When the subordinate fires off a "why do I have to do it?" question, Wellness hits back, he wasn't hired just to sit around and write reports. The Wellness says he only showed up in person last time to mock the guy's pathetic face, but this time, he calls it out, "This nasty, dirty grind, that's exactly what you're here for." Wellness hands him a brutal choice: take the job or get thrown out of the party and leave the poor subordinate with nowhere to go. And just to twist the knife, Wellness warns him to pray nothing bad strikes his own family, because it's coming for them too, or else. Which leaves the subordinate shattered on the spot as Wellness strides off, leaving them in ruins. Wellness tells him, "Since you're such a stand-up guy, I'm making sure the subordinate never has to crawl through the dirty work alone." Leaving the subordinate completely baffled, until Wellness finally lets it slip that he picked up something seriously interesting the other day. He plunges a hand into his robe and yanks out a weird dark orb, and inside it, swirling energy churns like it's alive. And the subordinate stares at it and his face drains of color on the spot, because he knows exactly what that deadly thing is. Wellness just shrugs it off, grinning like the orb's his brand new secret weapon as they stand outside the building. As they hit the city streets, people casually stroll and soak up the day, totally blind to the storm brewing right under their noses. Alulu strolls in looking exactly like she always does, flashes the boy a huge grin, and throws out a heartfelt apology for keeping him waiting so long. The boy freezes for a second when he spots her, but she powers right through it, straight-faced and electric, telling him it's time to go. The moment they start walking, he shoots her a question, "What's this whole request even about?" And she shrugs like it's nothing, telling him he's her new bodyguard. He's totally thrown off. Why would a guard be needed in the middle of the city? But she just bursts into a laugh and taps the truth. Monsters don't usually wander out where there are no dungeons. Alulu's face turns dead serious as she warns that monsters aren't even the worst danger lurking out there. The two of them squeeze through a cramped, run-down alley, and a bald guy just watches them roll past like he's waiting for something to happen. Sketchy characters crowd every corner, ear-ringed guys eyeing the street, hooded figures puffing smoke in the shadows, like danger is lurking in every breath, making he finally got it. Those lower-class back districts aren't soft at all, and with rough people lurking around every corner, it only makes sense to have a guard trailing through the back streets. He's clearly on edge as he blurts out, "Why would you even come to a place like this?" Alulu beams at him and tells him straight up that the guild keeps tabs with regular checks on adventurers who have stopped pulling their weight. They mainly target folks who have gone quiet on the guild lately, just to double-check the whole city is still holding together. The boy finally eases up and tells her, "That sounds like a brutal job to take on by yourself." He nods like it all just clicked into place, suddenly feeling way more fired up to be there, so he flashes her a huge, confident grin and swears he'll protect her with his life for the rest of the day. The crew blasts through their last stops in the roughest part of town, then slips away from those dark alleys where shady figures crouch in doorways. As they walk, the boy blurts out that Alulu is incredible for not getting lost even once, then jokes if she's got the entire map burned into her brain. Alulu chuckles it off and tells him it's not a glitch, it's a gift. She calls it guide, a handy little power that helps her choose the right path every time. She swears it even helps her track down lost items and trace them back to the people they belong to, so her job suddenly gets way easier. It's a power like you've never seen from most adventurers, and that's exactly why she can't help but be fascinated by it. She yanks out her clipboard, circles the last name on the list, and lets out a huge, satisfied sigh, because the work is finally, officially done. As she heads back, she can't stop smiling, saying how relieved she is that everything went so smoothly, until the boy cuts in and tells her it all happened because of her own hard work. He tells her that if she ever needs a hand again, she only has to say the word, and Alulu beams at him like crazy, swearing she's definitely counting on him. She thanks him for helping her today, but he shrugs it off and tells her point blank to make it home safe. Alulu thanks him for being so sweet, then flashes him one last wave before they split up for the night. The boy flashes a warm wave, and he and Lulu finally split off into their own directions. Since he's already out, he decides to stop by the shops and grab supplies on the way back. The sun starts sinking over the city rooftops as he bolts through his last errands, then he's left with that. The boy headed back to his spot with a bag packed full of fresh gear and daily stuff, convinced he'd finally scored a perfect day off, but the second he reaches his front door, he slams on the brakes, because a bizarre note is pinned to the wood like a warning just for him. He starts to get annoyed, convinced some kid's messing with his rental house. But the message claims they've seized the receptionist girl he came with, and it orders him to sprint through the back alleys to an old warehouse or die. He just freezes, staring at that paper for a beat, completely wrecked by what it's telling him, like the words ripped the air out of his lungs. He can feel this could get real, so he leans in, studies the letter, and checks the tiny item that came with it. He yanks out a hair ornament, stares at it, and realizes it's the very one Alulu wore earlier. Then it hits him hard. She's really been taken. The boy wastes zero time, storms out of his house, and sprints down the street, groceries scattering and the letter slipping from his hands as he bolts. He's panicking, yelling at the empty air like he's trying to summon answers for Alulu. Then he sprints on, terrified of what might have happened to her. At last, he reaches the outskirts and halts before a stone building, staring at it like, "This is it, this has to be the place from the note." He scans the silent back alley, sees there's not a soul in sight, and pushes straight toward the entrance. His thoughts are sprinting, scrambling to figure out who would pull a stunt like this, and why they'd dare target Alulu in the first place. He reaches the door, freezes for a split second, and wonders what chaos waits on the other side before. Inside, a guy with glasses sits beside Lulu, who's sprawled and tied down on the floor. The boy swings the door wide and screams her name like his life depends on it, ready to do anything to bring her back. But the guy with the glasses just smirks and tells him he's actually relieved the boy showed up after all. Alulu's blindfolded and stuck, but the second she hears him, she recognizes that voice and realizes it's Essen rushing in to pull her out. Essence loomed in the doorway and shouted, "Alulu," telling her he was here to rescue her while the bespectacled guy bends over Lulu, his telling her to stay perfectly still and shut her mouth. Essen clenched his teeth and roared at the guy to stop dead in his tracks because Essen fires off the question, "Why am I doing this at all?" Because none of it adds up and they've never even met. He smirks at the question like it's the most obvious thing in the world. He leans in close, grips the clothes and declares it's happening, because Essence won't back down. Essence totally baffled, he blurts that he doesn't understand, then Wellness suddenly drops into the conversation. And then the guy snaps, he admits Wellness wants Polaris for himself, so he's ordered to wipe Essen out for good. Essen can't even process it. Someone as high-ranked as Wellness just pulled off something this filthy. He can't believe he'd go this far when they're already a couple. Then the knife-wielding guy suddenly lunges at him. The guy in the back keeps pinning Lulu down and spitting, "It turned out this way," and now he's trapped in the role of the bad guy. As he explains, the stress is all over his face, because Alulu and Essen just won't stop clashing and now he's got no choice but to kill Essen. As Essence locks eyes with him in pure shock, he finally realizes Alulu was bait meant to yank him straight into a trap, and that's exactly how that person always plays the game. Wellness is the type who plays hero to low-rank adventurers, then loads them up with favors until they're basically his personal puppets. By the time he's done, they can't move without his say-so, even if anyone dares to say no to his plans, he turns violent, harassing them and making sure they can't find a way to land with another party. It finally clicks for Essen. Turns out the rumor about Polaris and Wellness being a couple is a total sham, and Polaris only plays along to keep Essen safe. So Essence just stands in the dark, feeling like trash, because he knows deep down his own mess is what got Lulu dragged into being a hostage. The kidnapper presses a knife to Lulu's throat, but Essen snaps his head up and blurts out that he finally understands what's really going on. Essen snaps at the guy to let Lulu go right now, because she's the only target Wellness actually cares about, and that's why. His face shifts to ice the moment he realizes one brutal truth: if he won't act, he's just as rotten as Wellness itself. Essen tries to snap him back to reality, warning him that even if he kills him, the Church of the Journey will rise up and hunt him down. He snaps, asking if the guy is truly fine being Wellness's puppet, letting that jerk steer every last thing. Then the guy just screams, "Shut up." The kidnapper dug in his heels, gun pointed at Essen, while Lulu screamed beside him as his hostage, and he insisted this was his only shot. Keep Essen exactly where he said and everything would be fine. Essen snaps back, yelling, "What's the point of keeping him here when he's out of options?" Then he presses hard, "Just give up already and let Lulu go." He keeps saying he's trapped in a dead end, then snaps into maniacal laughter, pure stress exploding all over his face as he grins that creepy grin, then yanks a tiny glowing ball out of his gear. Essence freezes, eyes locked on the eerie object, then it suddenly starts pulsing with a dark glow like it's got secrets. He leans in and spills the truth. This was the secret backup plan Wellness handed him, and the gem he's holding isn't just magic, it's got a monster sealed inside it. He lets the orb hover in midair and says, once this is done, it'll prove he's not a criminal, because everyone would swear a random monster just burst out of nowhere and instantly slaughtered Essen, right as a huge flash of light erupts and floods the room. A monstrous head explodes into the room in an instant, dwarfing everything as rows of jagged teeth fill every inch of the space. That the kidnapper just stands there with his arms raised, cackling like he's finally crushed everyone and won. The beast unleashes a thunderous roar that rattles everything to the core, and Essen just freezes, staring at the chaos he unleashed. What in the world did he let out? He keeps bursting into laughter, yelling non-stop about how insanely incredible the monster's power is. Alulu is stone-cold frozen, staring in silence as the nightmare crashes down around her. The kidnapper jabs a finger at the beast, smugly proclaiming it's a volcano dragon, one of the deadliest A-rank monsters alive. The dragon crashes down with a brutal slam, smashing the floor to pieces and blasting debris through the air like shrapnel. Essen's frozen in shock, trying to process how something like this could even be summoned. Then he snaps himself back to focus, because he doesn't have a second to fret over how it all went down. He blasts out Alulu's name, then sprints through the chaos like his life depends on it, because he has to reach her before it's too late. Everything around him is breaking apart as Essen rockets through the air, dodging flying debris. He bursts up to Lulu and blurts out if she's hurt, and she can barely scrape out a shaky yes through the shock. Just a few feet away, the dragon looms over the kidnapper's body, so close it looks like it's about to swallow him whole. Essen asks if she can stand, and she snaps back that she'll manage somehow, so he urges her to bolt while the dragon's busy, but she shakes with terror, refusing to leave him behind. She's practically sobbing, begging him to just run with her so they can escape together. But Essen already knows how ugly this gets. He warns that if that really is a volcano dragon, it could wipe out mid-rank adventurers in the blink of an eye. He tells her there's no way they can pull this off, and they've got to track down some top-rank pros to jump in and help. Alulu tries to fight back with words, but Essen cuts her off instantly, because he's got a reason for everything. He's already made up his mind. He tells her he'll stay put and hold that monster back all by himself. Alulu looks wrecked. She can barely even take in what Essen just dropped on her. Essen locks onto the danger and tells her, "Go get back up now," because there's no way they can let something like that monster keep roaming free. And as his legs start to tremble, he finally confesses. He wants to bolt too, but he knows if he runs, the damage will only spiral out of control, so he yanks his mask on, cracks it all down, and says every time he refused to run is what forged his strength, because now he's ready to fight. Then he eases the tension, tells her he's not some crazy person, and promises he'll sprint the second things get way too dangerous, and then he flashes her a tiny grin, swearing he'll behave and won't go off the rails while she's away. Alulu freezes for a split second, tears burning in her eyes, staring at him with a mix of raw fear and deep respect. Finally, she wipes her face, meets his eyes, and tells him she gets exactly what she has to do. She launches into a sprint to find help, shouting that she'll haul in top-tier adventurers as fast as her legs can carry her, and pleading with him not to die before she cuts off his story. Essen stepped away and left the dragon to face that massive beast solo, calling out, "All right, settle down." That massive dragon plants its feet like it owns the battlefield, unleashing a savage roar that has it commanding the whole sky, making it. Essen's like, "This pressure, are you kidding me? It's totally insane." And he wonders if Polaris really battles monsters like this every single day, but the dragon fixes its gaze on him, and Essen feels the trouble coming the moment. Just right as the dragon slams the ground hard enough to crack the floor, Essen gets blasted backward and launched into the air. He takes the blast full on, screams, and gets flung through the air like he weighs nothing. He grimaces in pain as he fights to recover, teeth clenched, muttering curses under his breath because he's hanging on by a thread. Essen blurts out that this thing is way stronger than he ever imagined. He's sweating, bleeding, and still but he hammers the idea into his own skull, get within the dragon's range. If he can swipe the gift, just maybe he can pull off the win so as to. While the dragon slams to stomp him, Essen doesn't freeze. He slips through the smoke, darting forward to smash the distance. Finally, Essen snaps into action, yells his airshot move, and launches it straight into the beast. The airshot slams straight into the dragon's face, but the hit doesn't even land. It blasts a cloud of smoke instead, cutting the moment short. Essen makes his move shine for a second, but it becomes painfully clear. It didn't do a thing at all, because he even admits his stunt totally failed, and